you can't control how smart you are. You cannot control certain, like how people are going to feel about you. You cannot control like the stock market. The only thing you can control is your effort. So, dude, step on it. Let's go.
You are now tuning in to the Relentless Project. Real people, real stories, real life.
Yeah, let's just talk about, think about life, brother.
Dude, there's a lot to talk about.
There is.
We'll just get going because this is quite the episode. Man.
I mean, hopefully. We'll see what happens.
And I've heard a lot about you, so... I mean, we've kind of haven't really good things.
Okay,
good things. Usually, when I get that too, I'm like, "Well, what did you hear from him?"
Right.
But for those who don't know, this is the one with Dr. Rick. I put Midos up there, but as I leaned into your story, there's so much you do and involved in, and I kind of nerd out when I have people on here who.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I try to bring people on here who are smarter than me, which most people are. But like, your degrees.
I feel the same way. Yeah.
He's like, I feel the same way. I'm smarter than you. What if you can describe yourself? That's which is the hardest thing. If someone says, "Oh, who's Dr. Rick?"
Right.
How would you describe yourself?
Right. So I was actually listening to a couple of your episodes, and I saw that's typically how you started the podcast. Like, who are you, bro? Believe me when I tell you that question sent me on a whole ass 3-day existential crisis. Because typically, when I, give a class or teach a lecture or a workshop, you introduce yourself. So I'm like, okay, and then you move on, right? So it's like, no big deal. My name is Ricardo Londono, and then, I'm a biotech entrepreneur. And then I was thinking, well, I mean, that's what I do. That's that's my job, but that's not who I am.
Exactly.
Okay. So maybe, I'm a physician, I'm an MD, I'm a PhD, I'm a scientist, I'm an electrical computer engineer. And then I was like, well, this is not a job interview. Like, what are you gonna give them your GPA next? That's what that's what you've done. Like, nobody cares. So it's like, who are you, and what do they mean by that? And it's like, fuck, man. And then after 2 days, I was like, I don't, you start like peeling down the layers. It's like, okay, well, I'm not, because what happens is that I don't tend to like attach my identity to any of those things. Right, which happens all the time. Right?
It's easy to do.
It's easy to do. Like I see it with my colleagues. Right, you see doctors that's their identity, and then you take that away, and it's like, okay, well, what else? It happens to professional athletes, right? That's their identity, and then they retire, and then like,
what's left?
Like, who are you? Yeah. Right. So it's like, fuck, man. Like, who am I? Right. And I was like, dude, I don't think I know. You know what I mean? It's like. I mean, I know what I want. I know how I want it, and I kind of know that. But after thinking about it for a long time, the closest I was able to come to an answer that I was happy with, and I know it's going to sound super silly, is like, I am my parents' son. I understand that doesn't make sense unless you intimately know my parents. But then I was like, no, wait. I'm like, you're onto something here. Because when you ask people, who are you? Like, hey, who's that guy? That's my producer. That's my video editor. That's my dad's friend. You kind of need to tether that to like someone. You need to like anchor
something that's going to apply to the person you're talking to.
In general, right? So they can kind of like plug that into the mental map that they have. So in this case, I guess I'm your training partner, right? That's who I am to you, your training partner. But also, it has to do with when you take all of that away, what's left? And I think what I am, I'm a student. I like learning things. And I like sharing the things that I learn with people who also think that those things are interesting.
That's
pretty much who I am, really.
Yeah, it's interesting you put it that way because even as cops, right? Like, who are you? I'm a cop, right? What does the cop stand for? Usually, integrity, all knowing right from wrong, all that stuff. But it's like.
That's a job.
That is what you do.
Right.
And I struggle with that too, and I honestly can't answer it. So it's kind of an unfair question that I ask because who I am evolves every day, right? Mm-hmm. I know what I want, like you said. And
Dude,
how to
hopefully
get
we're
there.
not alienating half your audience by, going down this,
No,
philosophical route.
No,
It's
no,
like,
no.
dude, who cares? Who are you, bro? Move on.
No, and I think the audience that usually follows the podcast, they're very open-minded. And,
Okay.
And they wanna see other people and what they're doing, and then they'll take what they can and apply it, and what doesn't apply, they don't.
Sure.
And I think that's why it's a very unique podcast, because I think the people who follow it tend to have an open mind. And I get messages with like, hey, this point was interesting. I really see it this way, and then that's what fosters the communication. That's what I'm all about, right? Like, I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers.
Well, you can't.
Yeah, you can't. But there's some people out there who pretend to.
Right. Yeah.
So we're not alienating anyone, I don't think. But it poses a question. By listening to that, you're like, okay, who am I?
Right.
Like, and how do I define that?
And you kind of need to ask that question. So I'm glad that you asked that question. It's an important question. Like,
Yeah.
What's your game plan, bro? What's your deal?
And how you answer it
Right.
says a lot.
Right. It's
Right?
like,
Because are we going to connect? Are we going to have a good conversation, or are we not? Like that.
Right.
That's also how I gauge that too. So student,
I'm a
you've done
student.
a lot of learning.
Yes, I love learning. I'm very glad that we are in a position where we can, because that was not always the case, right? Like, if we have the internet,
Yeah.
you can learn whatever it is that you want. It's there for you to learn
In your hand.
in your hand. So there's literally no excuse, right? Like whatever it is you want to, it's there. So whatever your interests are there, and then it is a privilege to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's good and bad, right? Like sometimes we learn stuff and that's it. That's all.
Yeah.
And like people don't try to see every side of an issue.
For
and that's
sure.
what leads to, I think, a lot of the animosity we see today.
Yeah.
But it's like there's so much to learn. You can't pretend to know it all.
There's so much to learn, and I like to focus on, I like to be practical about things. I like to focus on skills that you can use. I do like to learn a little bit about everything in general. Like I know, I guess I know a lot. No, I know a little bit about a lot of things. I'm not an expert in
That's how
anything.
I like to be.
But it's fun. It's from a certain point of view, it's kind of selfish, because it's like, at the end of the day, you live once, as far as we know, right?
Yeah.
And if you're lucky, you get 80 years. I think it's more or less like the.
But do you get 80 years, right? Because
If you're lucky.
Because the first 18, you're at someone's will trying to figure out life, and then your last.
But you're learning though, right?
Yeah,
You're
you are.
learning, yeah, and you're there.
And then the last 20, you're like winding down. So we have like 40 years where we're like, okay, I know
Right.
something,
Showtime.
and now it's time to do
Let's
something
do
with
it.
what I know.
For sure. But generally speaking, right? So, and we're alive during this time, and we get 80 years. So it's like, that's a privilege. It's like, and we live in the U.S.
Yeah.
Dude, well, like, what else? Like, what greater time? This is the best time to be alive, right? In
I
terms of
agree.
like, poverty, literacy, peace, technology, all that shit. And we're here, and it's like, all right, champ, your move. What are you gonna do?
Yeah,
Right?
like we get to be on a podcast.
Correct.
We get to train jiu-jitsu
Correct.
at our leisure. We get to learn biotech computers.
Dude, we have clean water
yeah,
in a bottle
in a bottle.
that you can just buy at any time, and it's cold if you want to.
And it's a good mindset to have.
For the
But
most part, that has not been the case. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Hundreds of thousands of years. We have modern medicine. You know what I mean?
we have food at the click of a button.
Correct.
Which is crazy. I think that's made people kind of not appreciate what we have, in the sense of, if you're hungry, you click a button and you can eat. There's people who have to send out groups to
Right.
hunt and gather and know that they may not come back,
Yes.
at
Yes.
the cost of a meal.
Yes.
So I'm very appreciative. of what we
Crazy.
get.
Yeah,
It's
man.
crazy.
It
It
is
is.
crazy.
And when someone says it, it kind of makes you like, it should humble you. You're like, man,
Yeah.
we're in a good spot.
It humbles you, and it makes you wanna get shit done.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like,
why
dude,
waste
like-
time? There's so much.
Like, what's my
like we were
excuse?
talking earlier. It's like we do a lot of things, and then people are like, "Man, you're so busy." Like I get this a lot. Like, do you ever just relax? Why would I?
What for, man? You know what I mean? That's not what life is
Yeah.
for.
There's so much to do, so much to learn, so much to get from this life. by me sitting down and doing nothing, I'm missing out on opportunities that
For sure.
that can be there.
For sure.
So you come from, speaking of, you're talking about all the privileges that you come from Colombia.
I was born and raised in Colombia. Yeah.
How was that upbringing, and what was it that brought you over to the States?
Okay. So the upbringing. So my childhood was actually awesome.
That's great.
Dude, it was great. I got very lucky. I have a fantastic family. My parents are great. My great friends growing up. Great sets of values and everything. That was fine. No complaints, no issues. We ended up coming to the States as political refugees when I was about 18 years old. I lived in Miami for about 10 years.
That's the place.
That is the place.
That's the place.
Yeah, man, 10 crazy years. It was fun. It was very difficult, as you can imagine, because when you become a political refugee, basically you have to leave everything behind.
You have to start all over.
At 18, right? So it's like the way it happened, not to bore you guys with the details, but basically my sister and I kind of didn't know what was happening. My parents brought us here on the pretense of going on vacation, right? Because we kind of had to leave rather quickly. It was not overnight, but within a few days. So next thing you know, we're here, spending the summer here. It's nice. And then once we got here, my parents are like, hey, how would you feel about, maybe doing a semester here? And I'm like, yeah, dude, absolutely. What are you talking about?
That'd be great. Vacation turn into a little stay?
Are you kidding me? Absolutely. And so I enrolled in college. And then they're like, okay, you know what? We're actually going to stay here with you for a little bit just to make sure you're okay. Different country, different language, different thing. We just want to make sure you have what you need. And then as time went by, I noticed that they're not leaving. And I'm like, hey, my sister, she has to go back to class now, at some point soon. And then eventually it's like, no, we kind of live here now. You know what I mean? And this is why. So anyway, I ended up going to college in Miami. I did electrical and computer engineering over there. It was awesome. It was very difficult. I started, washing dishes, working at a pizza place.
So you were working while in school?
The entire time. You have to, right? Because we left with nothing, really. You kind of start over from scratch. One of the things that happens when you're a refugee is that the U.S. government goes, hey, man, we'll protect you guys. All, high fives all around. But you can't go back to your country because that'd be silly, right? We're protecting you from those guys. So you can't go back, right? So you kind of sever those connections, move here. And it's like, all right, well, different culture, different language, although in Miami, not necessarily.
I love when I go to Miami because my name is Ishmael, but it's Ismael.
Right.
So I go to Miami and I order an Uber, like, Ismael, I'm like, I just start talking in Spanish.
It's like, oh, I'm home. Yeah, exactly.
It feels good.
Exactly, right? So, it was great, and it was hard, and it was, lots of lessons learned. But I knew that eventually I was going to go to medical school, right? So I'm doing, when I first got here, the biggest thing for me was the language barrier to go to school.
I was going to say, how was that transition? Were you learning English in Colombia, or did you just
I was okay. A little came here as an exchange student for a little bit. All that stuff helped. In Miami, as you know, you speak mostly Spanish. And the other thing that helped a lot was that as an engineer, physics is physics, math is math.
Yeah.
Right. But when I was taking
very objective.
Yeah, it's like a number, right? Chemistry is like a formula, right? But when I was taking my prereqs, I was doing like English literature. I was like, dude, why? I don't understand anything. What's going on, man? It's like, why do you?
My mind.
Yeah, can they? Why do you guys have to talk like that? You know what I mean? Like ancient English.
They say English is one of the hardest languages to learn because of all the structures and the words, like there, your.
Yeah.
Like when to use those.
And it's not phonetic. Right, so you write things a certain way, but then you pronounce it differently. So you have to learn two things.
Knife,
right?
Knife,
right? How you write it and then how you pronounce it, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the physics and engineering stuff was like, oh, cool, and
it was made it easier.
Yeah, and the English was like the hard part.
Dude, not to mention that at the time, this is early 2000s, we don't have smartphones.
Yeah.
Right. We don't have people when I started college, people even didn't have laptops to bring to school. So what I did, I would start every single one of my notebooks, I would start it from to back, normally, but then back to front with vocab, English, Spanish translation, with a little dictionary that I would carry. And like something that would take you 20 minutes, it would take me like 3 hours because I have to like fucking look it up and be like, okay, you know what I mean? Yeah. But that's what you need to do, right? That's part of it, right? You do what you have to, and then you move on. And like I was telling you before the other day, it's like like hard work absolutely makes up for a lack of talent, and you do what you have to do, and you move on, right?
I was gonna say, yeah. Where do you? Obviously, you showed where you fall, but there's people who are gifted with talent, right?
Yes.
And then they work, and then there's people who dig down and just grind,
right?
And those are the people. And I can see that from what I hear. And that's the thing, man. When everyone talks about you, it's not about your jiu-jitsu. Yeah. It's not about your shroom drink that you've developed, although that's mentioned. Yeah. It's your work ethic. Yeah. It's your outlook on life. That's who, when I ask, who are you? What you do is cool. Right. But like who you are, the type of person you are, that's what intrigues me, because the whole premise that I started this podcast was to like learn people's minds, why they do what they do, how they do it, their outlook. And I try to apply it to myself, and I hope that the listeners can kind of pull from that and apply it to their lives too, because that's when we're learning, right? Yeah. You can learn to do physics. How you apply what you learn is who you are.
What you do with it, yeah.
What you do with it. Because you can have all the tools.
You can just accumulate knowledge and do nothing with it.
If you have every tool to build a house and don't build the house, or don't know how to build it, it doesn't matter. Right. Yeah, you're not a builder. So that's one. When I was like, I got to talk to this guy.
Yeah, man, you've probably learned a lot doing your podcast.
Oh my goodness, I had this guy Dom Carter, bodybuilder, naval intelligence, all this guy. He started talking about the human body and the systems and I'm sitting here almost drooling because I'm like, dude, I love learning too.
Dude, a single conversation with one of those people can change your life.
Absolutely.
100%.
And I've had going to be 89 of them.
That's crazy.
So I love it.
So when did you start the podcast?
September of 23.
Okay. And how does that happen? How does one start a podcast, or like why?
So mine is a little different, right? Like I love intentional conversations. Okay. I have them in the most inconvenient places.
Bro, quote unquote. I hate small talk.
I do too. Like I don't have time for it. For a purpose. Yes. Right? Like I'm at a bar or at a restaurant or at an event, and I'm like I'm trying to talk to them, learning. Like if I say, hey, what's up? I'm in on it. Right. I don't want to good and moving on. Right. I'm that guy who's like, what do you do? Mm-hmm. Like what brings you here? What like. So I was having a lot of cool conversations that changed me as a person. Mm-hmm. And then I'm having these conversations with my friends trying to like, man, this guy, you got to talk to this guy. We talked about this. And I can never grasp the conversation how it was at that moment. Okay. Right? And people are like, dude, you're such a good speaker, which I would argue I'm not.
Work in progress.
Work in progress always. But like, dude, the way you talk to people, you're very intentional. Like you should start a podcast. Yeah. I hate being on camera. I hate social media.
Same. Dude, I hate social media so much. I just, you have to do it.
It's a necessary evil.
It's the worst.
And I'm like, oh, man, like, okay, I could do that, but like, I don't want to have my face in it. So I'll have like, and they're like, dude, like the whole premise of your podcast is people want to learn about you while they're learning about something.
You want to make it real, right? It's like, you don't want to be fake.
So I'm like, I don't want to be fake. So I'm like, okay. Fuck. Dude, so it took me like a year or more. Yes. And I'm like, oh, how do I do this? So I buy all the equipment, right? And I'm like,
you do the easy things first.
Yeah.
You buy the equipment. Anybody can do that.
And I make excuses.
I'll make a plan.
Well, I didn't make a plan. Okay. I made excuses. Is what I made.
Yeah.
I need the best mics, right? Because like people don't want to hear horrible quality.
Right.
Then I was like, well, people like video. Well, I need the best cameras. Okay. And I just kept giving myself excuses.
For sure.
And a buddy of mine looks at me. He's like, dude, you fight, you train, you're a cop. You do this stuff. You deal with a lot of crazy shit in life. Yeah. Your story, your upbringing, and you're afraid to talk in front of a camera.
That's like when people tell you, hey, man, I want to start jiu-jitsu, but I want to get in shape first.
Yeah.
It's like, no, bro. Like, you need to jump in.
You get in shape.
As you go. That is like half the point.
So he hit me with the reality of you're scared to talk in front of a camera. And when you put it that way, you dumb it down, I was like, damn. Yeah. I guess, yeah. So I sat in my kitchen one day. Yeah. And I was like, this is it. Today's the day. I set everything up, and I just started talking. I think I redid the first episode by myself like 15 times.
Was it just you?
It was just me, introducing the podcast, the premise, see if people were even interested. And then finally I reached a point where I was like, you know what? This next one, how it comes out is how it comes out, right? Because
did you post it? Did you post that first
and
episode?
I posted the first episode.
Okay.
You know, and my mindset was, I don't want to be for everyone, right? I want to remain
sure.
authentic.
100%.
And I want to follow.
That's so important, by the way. Yeah, it's not for everyone.
And I've seen podcasts, and that's what pushed me away of where people, it's so processed, so edited. You can tell it's so like, when something like a good deep conversation starts to happen, they just skim over it because they don't want to offend anyone. It's like, well, if you have the right intention, like you risk offending some, but you also help others,
right?
You know, and if people can understand, like, I don't have all the answers, and this is just my perspective on things,
and that's okay.
That's okay.
And if
right?
you get offended, that's also okay.
That's okay.
Like you'll get over it.
It's
fine.
Yeah, and it stimulates a conversation.
Correct.
So I posted it, and it got, you know, I reached, a couple people reached out to me like, dude, that was so good. I'm like, really? Because I hated it. Like I felt like I did a lot, and I started hyper criticizing myself.
Right.
You know, and then people, like good people I've surrounded myself with, you know, people at the gym and stuff, like, dude, like just keep going. You're gonna learn.
Sharpen
you're
the
gonna
knife.
adapt. Yeah,
keep going.
You can't get good at something if you're not going through the process.
You know. Plus, what did you expect? Did you think you were gonna be good from like, you know, step one?
That was my mindset.
Okay.
You know, and in talking with people, I realized
takes work.
Like, it takes work. Like doing this is work. It's a process. You're gonna learn, grow, and evolve.
Makes it so much better though.
Yes.
Right? It comes at a cost.
Yeah, when something's free,
you
you
have
don't
to
enjoy
put
it
in
as
the
much.
time. You know, it's not free. It's like you got to pick up those skills. And, you know, again, not to bring it back to jiu-jitsu, but it's like, hey, man, how much time are you spending on the mats?
Yeah.
You know
Why do
what
I
I mean?
keep getting submitted?
Right.
How many times do you come?
Correct.
How much effort are you putting into it?
Exactly.
And when you're here, what are you doing? Are you
present?
Yeah. Are you like distracted and socializing, or are you listening to the instructor and paying mind to your training partner?
Yeah, man.
So it's like everything else, man. It requires work, effort, and you can't be good at something if you don't start.
Yeah.
Right? You'll never be good at it if you don't start. It requires you to start. And then you get good.
And when you started, then what was your intention with it? It was just literally just learn from people?
Just learn from people.
Okay.
Yeah, like, you know, my whole premise is just talk to people. Do what I did off camera, on camera. Just talking to people.
I imagine that first episode was probably the hardest part.
The first episode was the hurdle that I needed to get over to realize. And then when I sat with someone who was one of my best friends, a guy I work with, he's like, hey, dude, he's a boxer.
Yeah.
He's a cop, great guy. I was like, dude, would you do my first episode? He's like, yeah. I mean, I don't. And then I notice everyone I get on here, they're like, I don't know what I would offer to people, but yeah, I'll do it.
We're just talking, brother.
And then, dude, the feedback I get, I'm like everyone has a story to tell.
Okay.
And that's my whole premise, right? Like when someone walks by you on the street, they don't know who you are.
Correct.
They don't know what you do. They don't know what you embody. And then when they listen to you talk, like how many people have you impacted? Just the people who've reached out to me alone, you know, not counting anyone else who's known you. I'm like, this is a guy to know. He offers a story. Everyone has that story. Everyone has a story.
Yeah.
Not everyone gets to
for
share
sure.
it.
Yeah.
So this is a way for people to like share their story, right? You're not a multi-billionaire with influence and all, like
Not yet.
not yet. That's the goal. But you know, and then I can say, hey, I had a conversation with that dude. Look at this. This is so cool.
And here's a podcast. And I'm like, yeah. To look at that.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
But that was the whole goal, was just talk to people, you know, and put it out in hopes that their story impacts one person.
Any unexpected challenges when you started, or like even like now? What's the hardest thing with, you know, doing a podcast?
The hardest thing is, in my opinion, is the conversation, like making sure I can get from the conversation, like pull people out. Because like I said, I'm not an interviewer.
Well, you are now by definition.
By definition,
Right.
So I guess I have to lean into that.
Right.
But with the cameras and the mic, I feel like there's more pressure, which it's added on my own. Like it's created, self-created, obviously. But I sit here and I'm like, man, I hope that, you know, I can connect with them and make them feel comfortable to be able to share some things. Like, so the hardest part for me is the actual conversation, but it's also my favorite part.
Okay.
So like, it's something I always look forward to.
That's when I was under the impression it would be like something like business related. like finding sponsors or like
I don't care about
distribution?
that. I don't
like,
care. The sponsors I have reached out to me. I've been reached out. Fortunate enough, a few sponsors.
Yeah.
And I've shut them down.
Okay.
Because like I feel once you start like selling out, you add another pressure, right? Like
Okay.
like let's say I have a company who's like, hey, you need to mention my stuff 3 times per episode, and this.
No thanks.
I'm like if it comes up, it comes up, and I
Right.
hope you understand like where I'm coming from when I want everything to be authentic. Project One, they reached out. I reached out to them. We connected. Greg's a great guy, and he's like, hey, dude, I love what you're doing. Like, here we believe in you. This is our token of appreciation. We form a partnership. Combat Flip Flops. I reached out to them. They're like, dude, we embody the same stuff you're doing. Like keep doing what you're doing. My buddy, Carbo Jewelers. Dude, I love what you're doing. He gave me
Here's some
a
jewelry.
lot of money.
Okay.
Right? To the point where I was like, bro, I can't accept this. Like, you're my friend. He's like, dude,
We'll figure it out.
I believe. Okay. No, literally. No, we'll figure it out. Dude, I believe in what you're doing. I think it's great. And if this is my way to show you, like, keep doing what you're doing, here. I'm like, do you want like a contract? Like,
No pressure, right?
Yeah. I'm like, he's like, dude, just keep doing what you're doing.
Okay. Nice.
So I partner with companies like that who are like, hey,
How does that feel though?
it feels great when it's
Right.
when someone understands what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And they trust me to do it, right? Because it becomes a support thing. And now it's no pressure. It's like I plug in Project One when I can because they're an amazing company,
Right.
And I believe in their products,
Right.
And I use them, right? Like I had a company reach out, and I won't say what it is because it'll sell them out. But they're like, hey, we're gonna pay you this much, and we want 3 30-second ads each episode, in real time. We want this, and I'm like, that takes away from the conversation. Imagine if I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh wait, by the way, here's this plug. Okay, now back to the conversation. You're gonna sit there and be like, what? What is that got to do with what
What
we're
the
talking
fuck was
about?
that? Yeah.
So the business side, my mindset is if you're doing something for the right reason,
Yeah.
the business side will work itself out.
And
when
this
I
is
get
just
there-
you, by the way. You don't
This is
have
just
business
me.
partners. You don't have. You were saying that
Self-funded.
you do your edits.
I do
right?
my edits, the graphics,
You do the production.
everything.
Man, you're like me, man.
And I YouTubed everything.
That's
Like
awesome.
internet.
Yes.
I learned how to edit with Illustrator. I learned how to do graphics with Photoshop. I learned
It's all
audio
there.
design. It's all there.
Yeah.
Like it's just, are you going to take advantage of it?
Yeah.
And that's something I like to do is take advantage of learning. So yeah, I mean, it's not the best, but it's the best for me and what I have right now. And I'm going to continue to learn, grow, and evolve.
Okay. Man, I have a cool book for you. Remind me at the end. Yeah, it's called Build to Sell. Or there's an older version of it. It's like the same concept. It's like the E-Myth revisited. And it talks about like how if you have a business, I don't know if you see this as a business or a project.
Project.
Yeah. So if you have something and it kind of, and you do everything in that thing, you don't really have a project. You have a job, and it kind of you just have to be You just happen to be working for yourself. So it kind of teaches you. We were talking about this earlier. What are the best things to delegate at first, and how to do that? Because there's a method, right? Just so the things that you would want to prevent, like people doing certain things their own way, right? Starts like pretty much watering down the brand and doing things like that to prevent those things from happening. But it's great. Yeah, and basically what happens is that a recurring theme that I see in my life is that I'm obsessed with time. We have a limited amount of time. We have, like when you read business books, they'll tell you everyone has the same 3 resources, right? You have time, you have energy, and you have money. I add 2 more. You have your skill set and you have your network, like your network of people.
Yeah, resources.
Okay? So, and you can do the same thing with all of them. You can waste them, you can spend them, you can invest them, or you can exchange them for one another. So for example, if you hire someone to come and clean up this space, you're exchanging money for their time and their skill. And in return, what do you get? Well, now you don't have to do it yourself, so you have 3 hours free. Maybe you can take those 3 hours and go do something else. Maybe work an extra shift and make more money, hopefully more money than you pay them. So that's kind of how I start seeing things, right? So you can either edit your videos yourself, or you can go make more money and pay them a little bit of that money to them for the same amount of time, right? So that's more or less how you start seeing things, right? So for example, with this podcast, you have a network. You can deploy that network if you want, right? You can monetize it easily if you wanted to, or you don't have to. So you can exchange your network for money. When you go to let's say when we go to Jiu Jitsu, what are we doing? We're exchanging money. We give them money, and we give them, I guess, energy and our time in exchange for what? Skills that we're picking up. What are we going to do with those skills? Well, number one, it may save our life one day, right? Especially you, because you're a cop, right? So right there, the ROI, infinite. It may extend our life because we're now working out every day. We're healthier. We're going to live longer, right? Or we can decide, to go into that business once we pick up the skills of jiu-jitsu, right? We can teach. We can set up an academy. Right, so now you're extending, you're exchanging your skills for money, right? The other way around. Take me, right? So I'm an engineer, I'm a physician, and I'm a scientist. Those are three different skill sets. I could choose which one of those I'm going to deploy, and I'm going to get compensated accordingly, right? Because engineers make a certain amount of money, doctors make a certain amount of money, scientists make a certain amount of money, right? And remember, you get paid depending on the type of problem that you can solve. So once you start thinking about resources that way, it all kind of blends together, and you start seeing how, energy and time and money and your network and your skills are interchangeable, right? You can exchange them for one another. But there's one that is special: time. Because time is the only one that we absolutely have to spend. When you wake up this morning, or when you woke up this morning, and not only you, but everyone, it's like we have a vault with time, and everyone has to withdraw 24 hours every day in the morning, no matter what. And you have to spend them. You have to choose how you're going to spend that time. Otherwise, someone else is going to be making those decisions for you. So what are you going to do with that time? Are you going to spend it? Are you going to waste it? Are you going to invest it? Or are you going to exchange, or if you have a job, are you going to exchange it for other things like money, for example? It's your choice. But no matter what, you don't have to spend your money. You don't have to spend your energy. You don't have to deploy your network. But time is going to run out 24 hours every day, no matter what you do. And on top of that, you cannot buy it back. So yesterday is gone. What? I don't care how much money you have. You cannot buy it back. It's gone. Whatever you did yesterday, that was it. I hope you did something useful yesterday.
I try to do useful things there, but that is a good way to put it, because money, I don't have to spend it.
Yeah.
Energy, I don't have to use it. Money, if you spend it, you get it back. Energy, you rest, you get it back.
Right.
Network, if you lose some, you can build it.
Correct.
Time is
ticking.
It's
ticking. It's ticking.
Time is ticking.
So what I say is that, number one, like I said, I'm obsessed with it. That's why I made the decision many years ago that I was only going to work on difficult problems that matter. That was a very conscious decision of mine. So you gotta, because you want to make it count, right? So that was one thing. And then the other thing is that it's also one of the reasons why I became kind of obsessed a little bit with not only productivity, but also health optimization. Because you can't buy time. But if you can become healthy enough, then you can add not only years to your life at the end, but good years.
Quality.
Yeah, because nobody wants to nobody wants to live to 100 if you're going to spend the last 30 years, in a bed with dementia. You don't remember who anyone is. But it has to be quality years, right? So that's kind of where I'm with things, going back to who I am, right? So I'm a student. What I want to do with my life is I want to work on difficult problems that matter. That's kind of the selfish part of it, just because I think those are interesting things and it keeps me entertained and it keeps my mind occupied and I enjoy it. And then the other half of that is that I want to, if I could, I want to contribute. I want to be a net positive on the lives of the people that are, on everyone, but the people that are closest to me, right? So you kind of and you can envision that as bubble or like layers as bubbles. So you have your like
a ripple effect.
Well, yeah, but also you have like your nuclear family. You
Yeah.
want to affect them the most. Then you have your extended family, your friends, your colleagues, and then eventually, the rest of society, like going outward. So you want to be a positive influence on them, right? You don't have to affect, 10 million people. You don't have to have a super successful podcast. As long as you can touch a few people and be a positive, net positive on their lives, then we're good. Like if I can do those two things, then
that's something
then we're good.
We share in common.
Yeah. What else do you want? What else?
As a man, what else can you ask for?
That's it.
And that's something I strive to every day is be a resource for people. And one thing you talk about business, one goal I have is to one day monetize this because I would love to, especially for the fighters, right? They have a camp coming up.
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to be like, hey, here, I'm going to fund your camp because I believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
You have a project you're working on. Hey, I want to fund this project because I believe what you're working on.
Yeah.
That's a goal of mine.
Yeah.
And I exchange time and skills
Yep.
with people in the sense of I'll tell them, hey, I'll edit your graphics out because I believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they ask me, well, how much do you want for this? And some people will call me dumb for this, but I go, I want you to succeed.
Yeah.
That is payment.
I want to see a knockout, bro. How about that?
I want to see you. I want to see you in the UFC. I want to see your project take off. I want to see your product go on the market. I want you to see this through.
Yeah, man.
That's my payment, right? Because I'm willing to exchange my skills and time for that payout.
Yeah. You know what feels really badass? Like there's no better feeling than like creating something out of nothing.
And watching it thrive.
Watching it grow, watching it make money, and then kind of like hiring people and giving people money for their work. That feeling of being a positive in society and creating something, bro, that's awesome.
Yeah, to be able
that's
to
so good.
Pay your friends.
Oh, that's great.
To do what you're doing
Yes.
already.
Yes. It's
Like
awesome.
that. That's I look at these big podcasts and influencers, right? And that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't knock it. Like some people go about it the wrong way, but they've created something.
Yeah.
And they're funding everyone in their circle to do the same thing they've been doing.
But it's theirs to do whatever they want with it.
Exactly.
Including fucking it up. It's their thing for them to it's yours.
Yeah. Do as you please.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that we share that resource.
Yeah.
You talk about time. What are some things you're investing your time into now? Because you have an array of things, but what are some projects that you're working on?
So bunch of things. So right now, so I just had a daughter, right? So
Congrats.
Thank you. She's 6 months right now. So without a doubt, do you have any kids?
Yes, I do. 13-year-old.
Yeah. Okay. So life changer, right?
Some would say.
So without a doubt, she is the most important thing for it changes things so dramatically.
Why you do things changes.
There is no close second anymore. It's like nothing matters. It's crazy.
I know.
Yeah. So, and I'm again hyper aware of the fact that in about 10 to 12 years she's gonna think I'm weird and she's not gonna want to hang out with me anymore. So
I can confirm.
That's how it happens, right? So I'm making every effort to spend as much time as I can with her because I have a limited amount of time with her for me to share with her who I am, hopefully impart some values, right? Before she starts ignoring me, right? So that's that's part of what takes most of my time and my energy and my everything right now. And I fucking love it. It's great. It's the best thing. Dude, it's absolutely insane to me that, I guess having the greatest, accomplishment or / pleasure or joy of life, it's available, I guess not to everyone, but to most people. It's like having kids, that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and what you learn from someone who has no clue.
A blank slate, yeah.
I tell my close friends, I'm like, my daughter will never understand how much she changed my life.
She will when she has kids.
When she has kids,
Yes.
yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
She will never, she doesn't know right now the effect and impact she's had on my life.
Yeah.
And that she has every day.
Yeah.
When we're bumping heads, when we're arguing, when she doesn't want to clean her room. No matter what, I'm always like, man, like I created this little
dude,
thing.
you're gonna miss those things. I can already, you know what I mean?
I trust me. I still see her like I still see her like she was a baby.
Yeah.
And I'll pull up one of her old photos. They pop up, and I'm like, wow, that's so different. This is not the same girl anymore.
Right.
She's learned. She's grown. She's
Time flies,
dude. And I like people who don't have kids may not understand, but I will burn the world down and everything I have to preserve that.
gladly,
To
with a smile on your face.
With a smile on my face.
Dude, yeah, let's go.
Like, and a lot of people don't understand that when they're like, well, what if, I'm like I guard her so much, and maybe it's not the best thing, but like people don't understand. Like as a parent, as a good parent, you will burn the world down.
As you should, of course. Yeah, it's your job. Yeah. Really. Like you know, that's what you're there for. Yeah,
like Sharon has to be
for
here.
Sure.
Like, and she's here, so I have to do everything in my power to preserve that.
Yeah.
So, kid, congratulations.
Yeah. So she's by far the best thing that has ever happened to me. Again, she's 6 months. She's given me so many things. One of the things that she has done for me, again, speaking a little bit selfishly, is that, you know, I guess one of the side effects of having her is that she's validated every choice and every action I ever took. Are you familiar with the butterfly effect?
Yeah. Well, I've heard different connotations of
well, you change
effect.
a little thing in the past and then everything changes. Yeah. Right. So you just got to think about, like, you know, just think about how many sperm cells we make in a lifetime. There's like trillions of cells, and how many genetic combinations are there possible with an egg? Like, just, it's basically an infinite number, right? So the thought that, you know, whether you call them, you know, mistakes or regrets, which I don't have, or anything like that, if you could go back in time and fix them, or missteps or whatever, well, you take any of those things again, or you take any of those things away, and then she's not born. She's not her, because maybe, you know, like an extra step, an extra sneeze, an extra, you know, different sperm hits that egg, or maybe I never meet my wife, or never, you know, maybe we meet but we don't date, or we don't, you know what I mean? Or maybe, you know, or maybe she's not born. So the fact that she exists means that every step I took, and including mistakes, and even including the bad things that I've done, if there's any, have led to that point. And it makes it all worth it. You know what I mean? And it makes it all, like, it gives purpose to everything. And it's like, all right, clean slate, let's go. It's great.
It is. And it, you know, I had her at a very young age. I was 17 going on 18. I was doing some things I shouldn't have been doing, and I made the conscious decision of some things need to change. But like now, being ahead of everything, like that was tough time. Don't get me wrong. Very dark times.
I imagine.
Like, being here.
Actually, I cannot imagine, but.
And people ask me like, hey man, if you could change anything about your past, and that's a question I used to ask people. If you can change anything, what would you change? I would not change a single thing.
Yeah, no.
I wouldn't ask to do it again.
No thanks. Right.
But I wouldn't change a single thing, because every single thing I've done has led me to here.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's a lot of maturing that happens when you realize that, and going, well, although that stuff was not good and it got me here, there's some things I won't repeat for obvious reasons. But those are things that I have to own. They were
Dude,
done.
at the same time, that's life.
Yeah.
Like, nobody gets a free ride.
And that's the thing. Like, no matter where people are at in their lives, some people are like, man, but they had it this way. So what? We all start at different points. This is the hand you were dealt.
Yeah.
You can own it, or you can put it on the table and cry about it.
Right.
And I know it's a little emotionless, but that is the choices you have. You can own it and do something with it, or you can stay where you are.
Whine about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which that's never in the history of anything.
That's not going to change anything. Yeah, correct.
You know, if you have kids, you understand. Yeah. When they whine and scream and shout, they get punished, and they don't get what they want.
Right.
That's how it should be anyway.
Right.
Like I always tell my daughter, like, you complaining right now is not going to change the outcome of this.
Right.
So you can embrace this.
Let's get busy.
And deal with it.
For sure.
And we get over this hurdle faster, or you can sit there, cry about it, and then still have to do it.
Right.
You know, and you know that's how we talk to each other. Yeah. We're very straightforward with each other.
I like that.
She's come to the point where, like, dude, me and my daughter, she's my best friend. You know, we have tough conversations.
How old is she?
13.
Okay, so I may have 13 years then.
Yeah, she started when she was like 9 or 10, where she's, you know, but she had, you know, it was me and her for a long time, so she had the benefit of growing up with a young dad who's still figuring it out.
Right.
You know, this is what I tell people in any part of their life. It's your first time having a 6-month-old. Mm-hmm. You know, and when she's 1, it's going to be your first time having a 1-year-old.
Yep.
Like, no one has everything figured out.
Correct.
We adapt as we go.
Yep.
But we're all living life for the first time, trying to figure things out and learn, and we're all doing it together.
You see your parents differently too. It's like, wow, okay, well, they were doing what they could.
I could tell you this in Spanish because you speak Spanish.
Yeah,
My
sure.
mom would always say, "Hijo fuiste, padre será."
Okay.
Never knew what it meant.
Okay. Well, now you do.
Now I do. Now I do, and I'm sorry, Mom.
Yeah.
Very sorry.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what other things, now that you have this, like, you have your daughter. Did that change, like, projects you were working on and things you were focused on?
Oh, absolutely. It changed everything. So it changed my, the way I allocate time. But interestingly enough, it made me so efficient. You don't understand. I now realize how much time I wait. I used to think I was very, I had optimized efficiency, right? And in fact, I used to brag about it. I used to, write a Substack about that too, like, productivity and health optimization. But now that I have her, it's like, all right, man, I need to shoot this video promo and we have 22 minutes and we got to ship it. We don't have 2.5 days. We have 22 minutes from the time she falls asleep, until, 22 minutes. So let's go. And it's like that with everything. So you become way more productive and you have less time for like things that don't matter, right? And I was already good at that. I was very hyper aware. I've always been very jealous, like very protective of my time, right? And how I spend it. What I tell people, my interns and the people that I've trained in the past, I tell them like, look, you don't have too much time. You only get to haul ass 2 things, maybe 3 things if you're a badass. So for example, if you have a job, you have a career, and you want to haul ass your job or your career, well, what does that mean? Well, it means number 1, you're there doing an excellent job, but you're also going to seminars, you're networking, you're reading books, you're educating yourself, you're getting better, right? You're making those connections. You're whole ass in your job. That's one thing. Let's say you want to whole ass raising your kids. You got to be a good dad. You got to be present. You got to teach them values. You got to teach them skills. You got to raise, people with character, right? With good morals. You got to be there for that. Those 2 things, that's a handful.
It's a lifeful.
If you wanted to write a book, you're not gonna whole ass writing that book. If you want to do those 2 things and you also want to train jiu-jitsu, you're not gonna whole ass training jiu-jitsu. Whole ass in jiu-jitsu means like, training full time and watching, your sleep and watching your nutrition and doing strength and conditioning and learning techniques and tactics and strategy. And you can't do that. You may be able to write your book on the side. You may be able to have a side gig, but you're not whole-assing any of those things. So, again, be very intentional with what you choose to whole-ass, because if you don't choose, someone else is going to choose for you. And you should, I'm not telling people what to do. You do whatever you want. When I say you, I mean like me. Like that's how I talk to myself. You should be very intentional with the things that you choose to whole-ass and then do it. Because it's very easy to like make a plan and then not follow it, or like having like this wishful thinking. These are the things.
Yeah, looking at the plan every day, like, oh, I need to do this,
right?
But never executing.
Right, executing is the hard part, right? So in my case, since all this to say that in the past, and by the way, you can change the things that you decide to haul ass. Every 3 months, every 6. Like if you're writing a book and you want to haul ass writing your book, then once you write it, then then you move on. Then that's not on your table anymore. You look for other things. So in my case, so right now I do a little bit of everything. The one thing that I'm whole assing is obviously my family, my daughter. I'm still getting used to that stuff and all that. But as you know, I run a couple of companies, biotech companies, which is what I do, right? And I also work at a hospital, because even though I have couple of biotech companies, they don't make any money. They're startups. They're not businesses.
Spend money.
They take my money, right? So just to clarify, You know the difference between a startup and a small business?
I should.
Okay.
But,
So a small business is basically most things. So anything with 500 employees or less is going to be a small business. So basically every single thing starts as a small business. So every restaurant started as a small business. You know, a club is a small business. A gym is a small business. You know, a startup, on the other hand, tends to deal with innovation. So you're going to create something new. And the understanding is that it's going to take time and money, lots of money, to develop that new idea. And maybe we're going to go to market 2 years from now. So whether it's an electrical car, or in my case, an artificial pancreas, or like, you know, a mushroom. The understanding,
I'm sorry, what?
An artificial pancreas.
That's
So
what your startup is?
one of them, yeah. So we'll talk about that in a second. But so the idea is that, you know, I'm not going to sell an artificial pancreas next week, right? Whereas if you and I open a pizza shop, we're in business. You know what I mean?
Good.
Like,
Yeah,
we're
that's
selling.
interesting.
It's a difference
It's
between a
something
business
that's
and a
been
startup.
Yeah,
Right?
it's there, it's proven, and
Yeah.
it's just your version of it.
And startups typically need money, like from investors, and because they need money from investors, the premise is that, or the prerequisite is that they need a 5 to 10x return on their money. So you want to see a J curve, kind of see, you know, on their growth. So you kind of want to see things go viral. That is why there's so many tech startups, because technology and things like software and apps and stuff like that, they tend to, you know, it's not easy, but it's easier for those things to go like viral, right? Because you code it once and then just distribute it, right? Whereas in the case of the mushroom drink, if I want to sell 50,000 units, I have to manufacture 50,000 units. It's not like once and done, right?
Yeah, it's a very
Right.
It's an even exchange.
Correct. So, but anyway, that's sort of like the difference. So I did start a couple of startups. But I guess I don't claim to be an expert on anything, but I guess my one field of expertise would be tissue engineering and regenerative medicine. That's what I did my PhD on. That's what I've been studying for years. That is the reason why I went to medical school. Actually, that's not true. I've always been fascinated with the intersection between technology and medicine. And at the beginning, I actually wanted to do robotic prosthetics, like robotic arms and all that, control with the brain and all that stuff. But then what happened to me was that, when you're in college and you want to do research, this is like 7 lifetimes away, ago for me. But at the beginning, I didn't even know what research was. I was in Miami and I had a boxing coach, and he was like, and he happened to be a physician, and he knew that I wanted to go to medical school. One time we're training and he goes, well, you're just hitting the pads and we're talking at the same time. And he's like, I imagine that from his perspective, he's just like trying to teach me things for life. And he goes, if you really want to go to medical school, it's really difficult to get in and it's really hard. You have to do research. And I go, yeah, okay, of course. Meanwhile, I don't even know what research is, right? So I went home that day and I started looking up, how do you do research? Like what's done that
researching how to research.
Right, exactly, right. So, and that's one of the reasons why I ended up here in Pittsburgh, because there was a summer program here that I ended up coming, like at Pitt, where I ended up doing research. I came here for the summer, and in the bioengineering department, and I started doing research in like biomechanics and arterial dynamics and stuff like that. And that's when I learned about tissue engineering, which is what I ended up doing. So tissue engineering is basically how you make organs and tissues in the lab, basically, right? So you grow tissue with cells. Right, it is wild. So I see that and I'm like, bro, like robotic prosthetics, all of a sudden they don't make sense. I want to do the real thing. I want to grow the real tissue. I want to learn how to do that stuff. And of course, my brain immediately went to like, dude, those guys can make skin. Skin is very, like from an engineering perspective, skin is simple because it's like a monolayer of like the same cell type. It's like, so it's like a sheet of paper but with cells, and it's the same cell, so it's like copy paste. You kind of do that.
Makes sense to me.
So it's easy. Structurally, it's easy, right? Compared to an eyeball, for example.
Oh, because there's more complex systems involved.
There's layers and then there's different cell types. And
I'm so interested in
and how do you put that together, right? So we can get into, we can talk about this for like, 3 days if you want. But So I'm like, okay, well, these guys next door, they can make skin. Right now, they don't. They can more or less do it, like for burn victims and stuff like that.
So that is a thing.
That is the thing.
Right?
Yeah, that is the thing. Yeah, like, so I'm like, dude, what's gonna happen with these fuckers? They learn how to make skin that is better than the skin that we have. Like, you know, like bulletproof
right?
Skin,
exactly. Dude.
So are people gonna start like upgrading their shit? You know what I mean? Or what if I can like an eyeball that sees better? You know, I don't know how the hell eagles see. They have probably like a different lens and stuff like that. But once we start developing like the ability to like zoom in or have a better eye or like things, you know, like maybe an eyeball that doesn't get cataracts, right?
It's the shit you see in Marvel movies.
Yes. So I'm like, are people going to start upgrading their shit with things? You know what I mean? That's why. So that's, you know, this is me in college thinking about these things.
I read
right?
online there's a contact lens that can help you see in the dark.
Yes.
With your eyes closed.
Oh, I didn't know that
I don't
part.
know how that works.
I didn't know that part. No.
But I started reading it and there was a lot of words I couldn't pronounce. I was
Okay.
like, I'll get back to this. But
yeah.
But like, so like technology is getting there. Like there's an artificial thing that can do it. When do we make the breakthrough where our own eyes are able to do that?
Right. So that's the kind of shit that I was thinking when I first saw these things, right? So I'm like, bro, I mean, yeah, sign me up, right? That's what I want to do. And by the way, just realize that whatever you think is awesome, go do it. You know what I mean?
I think this is awesome.
Like if you think, like, for example, flying a plane is awesome, well, go become a pilot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can do those things now. Again, this was not always the case. You know what I mean? But because remember, like back in the day, like for example, like my parents, my grandparents, they would go into a career and they would work on the same field, you know, for 50 years and then retire and get a watch and that's it. That's not how we work anymore. Like if you think about it, like people are switching fields every 5 years.
Or merging fields.
And like, you know, 5 to 7 years is enough time for you to develop an expertise and then go apply that expertise. Not always, but for most things. So this is what I tell people all the time, dude. Like literally, you have no excuse. Like go pick up a skill, go do a course on you know how to do phlebotomy, like learn how to draw blood, and then go do that, and then go become a nurse, and then if you want to be a chef, guess what? Go become a chef for a few years, and then go fly a helicopter for a few, like whatever it is, bro. Like you got almost want to shake them. It's like, dude, you're 20. You can do whatever you want. Like literally, like what's your excuse?
Even 30, even 40.
Go travel.
Yeah.
Go learn a language. I don't know, man. You know, once you have a family and you have kids, then other people depend on you. Things change a little bit, but still you
Possible.
can. Yeah.
Still possible.
Yeah, it's still possible. There's literally no excuse, man. Go do those things.
The only excuses are the ones we give ourselves. And that's what I've learned, man. And everything I do, Jiu Jitsu.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm sore today. It's easy to skip.
Do it sore.
Do it sore.
Yeah.
Like
I don't care.
You're not gonna die. And this may be a little dark, but the way I view things now is like, if I want to do something, I just do it. I leave no stone unturned. And if I like it, I pursue it. If I don't, I tried it. And it's like, you ever sit at night alone and you're like, man, like one day we're gonna die.
Only every night, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It's like one day we're gonna die.
Yep.
And there's two things that happen. Either you become so appreciative of what you have and what you're doing and who you're surrounded by, or you're very scared. You know, and there was a moment in time in my life where I was very scared.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what if I don't get to do this? Or what if I don't get to do this? Or what if I don't, you know, I've always wanted to try this. I haven't tried it.
What do I have to show for?
Yeah, like what am I leaving behind?
Right.
Like what is my daughter going to think of me?
What's
in this
your legacy?
Moment? Yeah, what's my legacy?
What did you do?
You know, so that changed a lot of my outcome, my mindset in life. And like, it's like when you sit there and you're thinking of it, and you're like, if I don't wake up tomorrow morning, like, would I be happy? Well, obviously not, because you're not here. But like, if you can sit back and be like, hey, it is what it is. You're dead. Here's the playback of your life. How do you feel?
Here's your balance sheet.
Yeah, here's your balance sheet. Are you putting more in than what you're taking from this world?
Right.
And I've taken a lot from this world, especially in my youth. I was not good.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. So like, when you sit there and you think this, you're like, anything is possible, because I'm going to wake up. I'm going to be breathing. and I'm going to have another 24 hours that I pull out.
For sure.
And I get to spend, it's like someone gives you $1 million. Here's your $1 million for today. You can go booze and drugs
Casino,
and
yep.
hookers and casinos and sure, it may be fun right now, or go invest it, go do something good.
Start a
with it,
business.
donate it, start a business, change someone's life.
You can go put it in the bank like a coward and do nothing with it.
Earn interest, pennies on it. Like,
Yeah.
so like, that's how I see time.
Yep.
You get $1 million every day.
Yep. You do.
Because it's what you do with it can be endless. You can have a conversation that changes your life. You can meet someone who invests in you that changes your life. You can learn a skill that changes your life. You can listen to a conversation that changes your life. That's time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So what I tell the guys at the gym, and because I'm older, right? I'm like 44, 45 now, and we tend to train with people who are 20, right? I talk to them all the time, and I try to tell them things as much as I can. And what I tell them is like, bro, like say yes to everything. Go try as many things as you can, because you don't know. First of all, things are not what they seem from the outside. That kind of happened to me many times. Like when I was like before college, I had this idea of what college was going to be like. And then I got there, I'm like, oh, no, not what I had in mind. Then I had this idea of what medical school was going to be like. And then I got to medical school and I'm like, oh, this is just like high school again. This is weird. And then the same thing happens with being a doctor. I have this, we all have this idea of what being a doctor is like. But it's like until you do it, you realize that it's not that. I imagine the same thing happens with being a cop. I imagine what being a cop is like. It's probably nothing like. It's probably a shit ton of paperwork. You know what I mean?
Right. No, but it's true. I came in obviously I came from a upbringing that was the opposite of cops, right? So I go in there, I'm like, man, and you go in, and I went in there, and I realized, I'm like, wow, these are just normal dudes.
Yeah.
Normal men and women just trying to do something a little bit bigger than themselves.
Well, it's why it's so important to like actually try the thing. So if you're young, try as many things as you can, because you don't know what you don't know.
You can afford to do it too.
You can afford to do it. You have the time. You have the energy. You may discover that you're incredibly talented at something that you never really knew, right? So think about it. It's like statistically speaking, the person who was the most talented at computer programming never interacted with a computer, because computers didn't exist when they were born, right? That's and the same thing happens with music, and the same like mathematically, because most people that had ever existed are dead.
Yeah.
And technology has only advanced for the last, since the Industrial Revolution.
That's I've never heard of that. That's a good way to put it.
So if you think about it, if you're 20, you may have something that you're really good at, you just don't know because you've never done it, right? So go try as many things as you can, and then whenever the point the point comes from for different people at different stages. For me, it was around my 30s. But whenever you decide that you've tried enough things and you realize that you kind of know yourself, which you don't, but you think you do, then at that point, then you kind of flip the script and the opposite happens. So now instead of saying yes to everything, you say no to everything. And then you very intentionally choose the things that you want to haul ass. And hopefully those are things that will contribute, to you in many different ways.
Provide return in different aspects of your life.
So whether it's your skill, your connections, you got to enjoy it, your satisfaction, and your health, your finances. And so those are the things where you want to put the most pressure and where you want to spend most of your time. Even if, bro, I'm 45 and I still don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up, right? But you got to spend your time until you figure it out. It doesn't mean that I'm just going to waste my time until I figure it out, right? I'm going to stay busy. I'm going to pick up skills. I'm going to keep making a better version of myself. That way, when the opportunity shows itself, or when I finally decide what I want to do when I grow up, I'm going to be the best version for me to take advantage of that opportunity.
You ever think the universe aligns with things?
All the time.
I just had this conversation with someone, and he mentioned you want to be the best version of yourself to receive these opportunities that come. And you just talked about it now.
Well, what you want to do is you always want to do your best.
Yes.
So what that means, and keep in mind that, you kind of have to be kind to yourself, and you have to realize that your best is not always going to be the same, because, you have energy levels, you have moods, right? You have a temperament. Sometimes you're tired. But regardless of those things, you want to be doing your best.
And it's important to note your best may not be the best.
No, for sure. And it's not going to be.
Yes, because people get, I'm one of those.
Yeah.
Jiu Jitsu.
Yeah.
I give my best.
Yeah.
And I get slaughtered.
Same. Yeah.
You know, it's like,
same.
It's frustrating, but it's like, as long as I'm showing up and doing my best every day, that needle's going to continue to
Yeah. It also
grow.
depends on what outcome you're measuring, right?
Yeah.
Like, because what matters, I mean, obviously,
Submissions, that's it.
right. So we all go to jiu-jitsu for different reasons, right? So like, you know, the idea is, in my case, I cannot speak for other people. The idea is to get better for me. So that's what I measure, right? I don't care. You could get better even though you're losing every single match, right? At the same time, you can win every match and not get better, not improve. So which one of those two do you want,
Yeah.
right? So, but in any case, so yeah, man, you try as many things as you can, and you always do your best, understanding that there's going to be ups and downs. And if there's an up and you're doing your best, that's when magic happens, because you're gonna surf that wave. But if shit's going down and you're doing your best, that's going to help you absorb that hit. It's not gonna be it's not gonna be as bad as it would have been if you kind of like let yourself go and do nothing and be passive about it and kind of like let life push you around, because you're pushing against that. So that low is not gonna be as low. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Rather than being at a low and you didn't put everything in.
Stay steady.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah, just do your best, and good things come your way. You know.
Dude, this is good shit.
Yeah, man. It's like what is it? You know, a job well done. It's its own reward. Yeah, just try hard. Just keep working. Keep sharpening that knife.
Remain relentless.
Yeah, man. Like,
And it's, I mean, you're talking to it. If you remain relentless in your pursuit, you're bound to find success. Now, success looks different for everyone,
Right.
but if you remain on it, on that path, on that mission, on that objective, and you keep going, you're going to push through barriers. You're going to learn. You're going to grow. You're
sure.
going to adapt, and you're going to figure it out.
you are, or maybe you're not. But because at the end of the day, and by the way, what else can you do? Like, you can't control other things. You can't control, you know. So
You can control your effort.
You can control it's the only thing. You cannot control your IQ, like how smart you are. You can't, you know, you kind of, that's kind of like based on your genetics and the things that you were exposed to as a child, like what songs were your parents playing when you were 2 that develop your brain.
Well, that's why I have room temp IQ.
Right? So that's why you can't control how smart you are. You cannot control certain, you know, like how people are going to feel about you. You cannot control like the stock market. The only thing you can control is your effort. So, dude, step on it. Let's go.
All gas, no brakes.
Yeah, man.
Tell me about this artificial pancreas.
Well,
I mean, what you can tell me. I'm sure there's a
no,
lot.
dude. I'll tell you
Like,
everything. About it.
why, what stemmed that? You saying, you know, you got into the tissue.
Yeah.
There's so many things you could do with that.
There's so many things.
Bulletproof skin,
Mm-hmm.
zooming eyeballs. Why the pancreas? Which I understand the pancreas plays. What role does the pancreas play in the human body?
Yeah. So there's like 17 questions right there. So let's go in order. So when I first started doing my PhD, what I really wanted to do was I wanted to be a professor at a university. I want to be a researcher, right? So typically what you do, if that's what you want to do, is you do a PhD. So a PhD is nothing more than a training program over a few years where they teach you how to become a scientist, right? That doesn't mean that you need a PhD to be a good scientist, because there are many really good scientists that don't have PhDs. But what you do need is this skill set, right? So you need like the critical thinking ability. You need to learn how to do experimental design. You need to understand statistics. You need to learn how to communicate to people. That's one of the most important things. So you can communicate your ideas. That's how you get funding for your projects, right? You write grants. So you got to be able to like put your ideas in writing. You want to be able to communicate your findings to your colleagues, to the general population. So you basically, you know, and you learn the practical aspects of existing in a lab and doing science with your hands. So you can certainly do all of that or learn all of that without having a PhD. But the nice thing of doing the PhD is that it's kind of like protected time. It's like you're going to school for this. So, and it's like your only job. It's kind of like boot camp. It's like, bro,
Yeah, it's very structured. You're learning things.
You're
need to
not
learn.
doing all this shit. Like, this is your one thing. Kind of like, can you just like do it?
No trial and error. It's been
Right. You just do it.
proven.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So when, and then,
Boot camp for scientists.
right, you propose a thesis, which is your project, and then you defend your thesis, and hopefully you have a couple of publications, peer review publications through your PhD. That's how you learn how to write papers. That's how you learn how to interact with reviewers and journals and stuff like that. So like baby steps of a scientist. So I'm like, okay, so I wanted to be a professor. So fine, MD, PhD, when I combined the two, and I want to do tissue engineering. Great. But like I was telling you before, things from the outside look very different as what they actually are. Turns out that there's many things both in medicine and academia that I was like, thanks, but no thanks. Hard pass. Next question, right? So I'm like, I'm just gonna step away from this world and I'm gonna go into basically industry, right? So when you get a PhD, typically they train you to be a scientist, but if you don't want to be a professor and pursue that route, typically people go into industry. So you go work for a pharma company or a biotech company and stuff like that. And in that process, I said, well, what if we just start our own company? So cool. I had a bunch of ideas, a bunch of things that I wanted to do. So what I did was I basically put all the ideas on a matrix. I didn't know it at the time, but like a risk
risk to reward or risk management.
Yeah, and I put things like the size of the opportunity, the amount of like knowledge that I have about these specific topics, the competitors, stuff like that, how much work it would take, and I kind of racked my ideas, and I said, okay, well, one of the things that they teach you in business is that you shouldn't really drink your own Kool-Aid because you come with many biases and many assumptions. You need to run stuff by people all the time. And one of the problems that me and my co-founder had was we didn't have money to hire experts to give us feedback on our plan. So we said, okay, well, let's get together and let's start the business. And what we're going to do is we're going to write a bunch of grants and we're going to submit them because grants get reviewed by experts and they give you feedback. So we're like, dude, that's going to be like free feedback, right?
I just want to take a second to shout out a few companies who believed in me. These were one of our first official sponsors, so huge shout out. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Carbo Jewelers, established in 1997 on the values of honesty and integrity. Whether you're searching for the perfect piece, need expert repair services, visit Carbo Jewelers in Newark's Ironbound District, where your jewelry is always in safe hands. This episode is also brought to you by Continental Jewelers, proudly serving Hudson County, New Jersey since 1964. Whether you're seeking a timeless piece or need expert repairs, they've got you covered. Visit Continental Jewelers, your trusted source for all things jewelry. You can find them on Instagram at Carbo Jewelers or online at carbojewelers.com. Lastly, big shout out to Carbo Trading. Besides coins, precious metals, and jewelry, if it could be traded and collected, he's probably got it. They can be found on Instagram at carbo.trading. You can find all of our sponsors out online on our sponsor page at therelentlessproject.com.
And maybe we get money.
And yeah, we weren't thinking about getting money at all because it's like very difficult, right?
That's genius.
It's
So you're utilizing this process to...
Yeah, so basically, you can imagine, like at the time I had 2 jobs. So basically, for this additional project, we were both like waking up extra early, and we would be meeting at a coffee shop in the South Side, like at 5 o'clock in the morning, and work for 2-3 hours in our company before we both went to work, right? And then repeat the same thing the next day. So we write a few grants, we send them out, we get different projects, different things, and we start hearing from all of them except from the artificial pancreas one, which we thought was the strongest one and kind of like the one we wanted to do, right? And we had submitted that one through the Department of Defense, like DARPA. And the next thing you know, we get an email saying, hey, your project got funded. And we're like, wait. Time out. Like, because at the time, we're just running ideas by people just to like, hey, man, what do you think about this? Like, does it sound good to you or no? And their response is like, all right, man, here's some money. Do it. So now we're like, shit, well, I guess we're quitting our jobs and starting this company for real, right? So we did. We got this grant from DARPA, And we started working on the artificial pancreas, and then we went to raise more money from investors, and and eventually had to hibernate the company because we couldn't make any progress. But to answer your question now, your technical questions about tissue engineering and the pancreas and all that stuff. So as you can imagine, every field of engineering has things that are super easy and things that are super complex, right, to do.
I would imagine.
In my field, tissue engineering. So tissue engineering is very special because it's kind of like it's the only field the only field of engineering that is trying to replicate something that already exists. So there's like a gold standard. If I make a piece of skin, it's going to be very easy for someone else to be like, okay, well, this is real skin. This is the one you make. How close is it? Right? Whereas other fields of engineering, they don't, like rockets don't exist in real life. You have to make it. Right? An elevator didn't exist. Someone had to create that thing. Software, is artificial.
And then it's developed and pushed after it comes to market. That's interesting.
What we're trying to do is like replicate whatever already exists. Let's make that. Let's figure out how to make an eyeball, how to make a piece of muscle, how to make a tooth, how to make bone, right? So, okay, great. So in our case, something that would be very simple to make, like I told you before, would be a skin. Right? Because it's one cell type and it's a monolayer, and you just kind of like sandwich a couple of layers and you're done. Now, if you change some of those cells, if you change the cell type, different layers, and you roll it up, that becomes a vessel, right? Like an artery or a vein. So that's kind of like easy, simple. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, you have things that are super complex. The most complex object in the universe is the brain, the human brain, according to the human brain anyway, right? So, right, so that's the most complex thing. But or like a heart, like right, that's it's a 3-dimensional organ that has many different cell types in very specific places. It has a very specific structure, and one of the main challenges when you are growing an organ that is that big is that you got to figure out how to deliver oxygen to every single one of those cells, because once you go past a certain thickness, the cells in the inside, they become hypoxic and they begin to die because they don't get enough oxygen, right? It's one of the reasons why that's how tumors grow, by the way. Once tumors go past a certain size, they start releasing factors so they can grow vessels inside and deliver oxygen to the cells inside the tumor so they can keep growing. Otherwise, the center would be necrotic. It would just die because no oxygen gets there. So if you're a tissue engineer and you're trying to make a big organ in the lab, grow it, you got to figure out how you're going to keep every single cell in your construct fed with oxygen and nutrients. And how are you going to remove CO2 and waste products and all that? So that's a big challenge. Another challenge is innervation. How are you going to connect the nerves to a complex organ, right? Or like, let's say you have a piece of muscle, right? So you need like your nerve connections to activate each one of those cells so they can contract when your brain tells you to move the arm, right? So that's challenging. So if you are going to be a researcher at a university, that's kind of where you're playing. You want to keep an eye on the future and you want to work on the fundamentals of very complex problems. How are we going to do that and make very incremental progress towards those goals? If you have a company, you cannot do that because you need money from investors, and you can't be like, hey, guys, can you give me your money so maybe 200 years from now, after many generations, we figure this out eventually and then you get your money back? You can't do that. And at the same time, you can't be like, hey, can you give me your money so I can make skin? Because that problem is already solved, right? So you're going to be like me too, like a competitor in an already existing market. So they're typically not interested in those things. What they're interested in is like the next frontier, something that is complex enough that we haven't done it yet, but at the same time is simple enough that probably within the next 10 to 20 years, someone is going to do it. And if you're interested in that and you start a company to pursue that, and you have a good plan and you manage to put together a decent team, some people may bet on you and give you their money. in case you want to do it. So for our field, I happen to believe that that frontier is glandular organs. So anything that is a gland. So a gland is basically an organ that secretes things. So for example, the pancreas makes hormones, right? So the pancreas makes insulin, right? If you're diabetic, if you have type 1 diabetes, it's because your pancreas doesn't work. Typically because, so type 1 diabetes is actually an autoimmune disorder. Your immune system attacks your pancreas and destroys it. It just happens that it takes, about 10 to 12 years to do that. And that is why type 1 diabetes typically shows up when you're 10 to 12. Your pancreas doesn't work anymore. You don't make any insulin. You cannot absorb the sugar. And then, you show up to the emergency room pretty much in shock. And they go, insulin. And then they fix you, right? There's many other glands. Your thyroid, right? There's your adrenal glands. There's your salivary glands. But the interesting thing about glands, well, there's two important things. Number one, it doesn't matter what shape they have. If you think about it, things like your stomach, it has to have a very specific shape. It has to be a pouch so it could hold food. And it has to connect your esophagus to your intestine because you need to eat, right? If you think about your heart, it's got to have a very, very specific shape and a very, very specific structure so it can pump blood in a very coordinated and a highly elaborate process. And, the inside of the heart has to have a very special, an endothelium, it's, a specific type of, cell type so the blood doesn't clot and it keeps flowing, and it's got to have a certain, contractility force so your ejection fraction meets the requirements of your body. In other words, form and structure matter a lot for most organs. But for glands, it doesn't really matter what shape they have. As long as your pancreas makes insulin, who gives a shit what it looks like? That is why we can inject you with insulin and you're fine, right? So not only does it doesn't matter what shape it has, typically it doesn't matter where they are in your body. That's why you can inject insulin in your leg or your arm or your belly. Typically that's what they do. Sometimes when you're having, procedures done in your thyroid that may compromise thyroid function, they're going to take it out and they're going to put it in your arm, either for a little bit or like that's not where your thyroid lives. As long as that thyroid tissue responds to blood levels of thyroid hormone and it responds accordingly.
That is interesting.
It doesn't matter where your glands are. I mean, your salivary glands need to be in your mouth, right? So they can produce saliva. But so the shape doesn't matter. The location doesn't matter. And then the last thing is that they tend to be fractal in nature. And what that means is that a single cell of the thyroid, and I'm oversimplifying things, but a single cell behaves like the entire thing, right? So a single cell of your thyroid gland can sense thyroid hormone levels and then respond by dumping thyroid hormone. And then all you do is you multiply that many times and then you have a thyroid gland. Again, I'm oversimplifying, but the little unit.
So essentially it would be, again, oversimplifying.
Yeah.
If you can figure out the system on a microscopic level, you could then replicate that in theory into
the functional thing. Yeah. Like that doesn't happen with things like your stomach. Like a single cell from your stomach doesn't behave like your entire stomach. It doesn't do the same function. It doesn't happen with your eyeball. Like a single cell of your eyeball cannot do the function of the entire eyeball.
Yeah.
Whereas with glands, they do. They just do a little. They just produce a little amount of the hormone.
So they read. They read. They analyze, and then they respond.
Yeah, they respond by dumping whatever it's needed.
Holy crap! I learned more now than I ever did in one of my
So
science
for
classes.
us now, so here's the crazy thing. So what we came up with was with an idea of doing an artificial pancreas in the body, but we're not growing a pancreas. We're growing organoids, and organoids are basically tiny clumps of cells, smaller than a grain of salt. They would be composed of hundreds of thousands of cells themselves. But the idea is that if you look at those things under the microscope, they would be indistinguishable from an actual pancreas because it's the same cell type. right? And they all make individually, they make insulin. So the idea is that you put these things in a syringe and you inject them all over the body, and now you have a decentralized pancreas, right? So instead of having a single organ in your abdominal cavity that responds and can make insulin and dump it into your bloodstream, you have all these little satellite tiny units everywhere in your body that are collectively reading insulin levels. Again, oversimplifying, that's not how it works, but and then they're dumping insulin into your blood system, and then that's how they regulate your glucose levels.
Now, in theory, will a decentralized system be more efficient than a centralized system?
Who knows? Who knows if it would be more efficient? But at the end of the day, who cares? Like if it's 80% efficient, we will just inject 20% more cells, and off you go. Even if it takes twice the amount of cells, like you're curing diabetes.
Yeah, I guess efficient wasn't the word. I mean, like, would it be better overall to have it all over?
Maybe.
Rather than
maybe than having it centralized.
Yeah, centralized.
Yeah, maybe.
Because in theory, again, this is not my wheelhouse, but
right.
It having to respond from a central location. I'm thinking of it like troops, right?
Yeah.
Like if we have one compound,
right,
and you have to respond to multiple threats, your troops have to come out,
right.
Rather than we have little compounds throughout the entire area.
Yeah.
You can send less troops from more locations covering a bigger area.
Right. So, that's actually pretty interesting. I never thought about that. Like, because I never thought about efficiency that way because we're not there. Right. So for us, it's just like, hey, man, let's make sure that the cells don't die when we transfer them from one petri dish to the other.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
very
Like,
important.
let's just go step by step. But sure, like that could be very well the case. Or maybe not. Maybe things are the way they are for a reason. Right. And maybe our solution is not perfect, but maybe it's good enough.
It's a stepping stone.
Maybe it's good enough that people don't need insulin, 3 times a day anymore.
Yeah, because I was thinking in the way like when essential locations require more. And please follow me as I go.
Right. No, I understand.
It's going to require
I'm following you 100%.
Resources,
Right.
more. It's going to require the cells to do more
Right.
from a central location rather than you can replicate the same effect by having the cells do less but from more locations. So essentially it's doing the same work.
It's like more disseminated.
Yes.
Yeah. But regardless,
Hey, if you use that in your research, just give me a thumbs up. Like
give
this
you a
dumb guy
chunk of the company.
Yeah. No, I just want to.
Yeah.
I just want to see it injected into me.
Yeah, right. So that was the idea, right? And once you develop that kind of like that process, then all you do is you change the cell type that you start with. You develop it as a process, and then at the end of that process, instead of ending up with a pancreas, maybe you end up with a thyroid gland because you changed the cell type, and now you can cure hypothyroidism, right? Or you can end up with testosterone producing cells, right? And now you can address low testosterone.
Is that a thing?
Right. It can be for sure, right? So the way this whole process works is
I'm gonna need that.
Dude, you and
If
me,
this
brother.
takes off, I'm investing in
You
that
and me, brother.
100%.
Right. So the way this works is you start with stem cell. Do you know what a stem cell is?
Yes.
Okay. So stem
It
cells.
comes from usually the umbilical cord, or I guess they're known for having stem cells. And
Some of them do. Yeah.
they can be programmed to.
Right. So the key thing about a stem cell is like having a wild card, right? It can become any cell type. So if you think about it, if you go back in time long enough when you're an embryo, you're just a clump of stem cells. Some of them happen to become your arm, or like they become muscle, or they become bone. Because every single cell in your body, with the exception of red blood cells, has an entire copy of your genome, right? So your genome is like your blueprint. It's like a book of recipes, and the recipes tell your body how to make you, right? My cells have the recipe of how to make me. So every single cell in your body has an entire copy of the whole blueprint. But what happens is that they are, within that book of recipes, they are reading different recipes. And that is why muscle cells look different from bone cells, and they look different from cartilage. Right? Like you and I may have the same. So for example, my wife has the, Danny Trejo's cooking book, right? So if you and I have a copy of that book and you make carne asada, but I go and I make tacos, we end up with different things, even though we both have a whole copy of the same book, right? So when you have a stem cell, those stem cells also have an entire copy of your genome. But what happens is that because of the instructions that they receive in the form of growth factors and cytokine, like basically chemical signals, they all execute a different part of the program. So some of those cells become skin, some of those cells become nerves, some of them become your eyes, so on and so forth.
This is wild.
It is wild, but that's how it is absolutely wild.
So in theory,
Yes.
in theory, we could create an entire human in a lab, in theory.
Yes, of course. Like put it this way, dude. So, one of the things that happens to humans, and I didn't know this. So if you know that lizards can regenerate their tails.
Yes, that was my next question.
Yeah, and sound. So because I did a lot of work with that too, after my PhD as a postdoc. During that postdoc, I learned that, so you know how biology is divided by phyla, like there's like, cnidarians and chordates and mammals and birds and reptiles. And all that.
I know mammals, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of them, right? Like all the animals are mapped out like that. They're like families, right? Well, I used to think that maybe a couple of species had the ability to regenerate, but that is not the case at all. It turns out that every single phylum has examples of species within it that have the ability to regenerate tissues, like after like amputation of like a limb, right? So like spiders and crabs, they can regrow entire limbs, and salamanders and birds can regrow like hair cells and stuff like that. But it so happens that the more evolved the animals are, and we don't really know where this happens, we tend to lose the ability to regenerate. Like, humans, we can't, like if you lose an arm, that's it. But, and there's a couple of theories or hypotheses rather of why that happens, and they have to do with, optimizing the immune response and all that. That's a whole rabbit hole. But it turns out that if you go back in time, we had the ability to regenerate. That is why, I don't know if you've noticed, but as you gotten older, it takes a little bit longer for, like you get cut, it takes a little bit longer to heal. Or, if you go on a bender, you're going to be hangover for a little bit longer. When you go to the gym, you're going to be sore for longer because you're losing the ability to heal as you get older. But likewise, if you go back in time, babies, they heal very well. Like they heal without scars, right? Like if they get cuts or anything, and they also heal super fast. There's many examples with brain plasticity where babies lose part of the brain and is like literally irrelevant. They make up for it, right? But more interestingly, if you go back in time even more, inside the womb, when you're literally an embryo, when you're just a cluster of cells, you can take a cluster of cells like an embryo and cut it in half and separate it. And each of those halves is going to completely regrow the other half. And that's how twins happen. That's crazy. Like monozygotic twins, anyway.
I mean, as barbaric as this may sound, and this is just my brain going right now. Could you make twins then?
This is all hypothetical.
Yeah, okay, hypothetical.
Yeah.
Could you make a twin then?
You hypothetically, you can take an embryo early enough, you split it in half, and each half regenerates the half that is missing. That's identical twins. That's how that happens.
Well, I know it happens. Like I thought it was like your body saying, "I want to make twins today," so then it does it.
No, there's different types of twins, right? You can have like different eggs and different sperm. Yeah, exactly. So we lose the ability to regenerate as we get older.
Tell you what, this was not on my bingo card for today.
Me neither, but here we are.
And I'm glad.
I thought we were gonna talk about jiu-jitsu.
I thought we were talking about jiu-jitsu and a mushroom drink, dude.
Oh fuck, I forgot about that.
Fuck the mushroom. Not fuck the mushroom drink.
We'll do this.
We'll end it with the mushroom drink, but like. This is so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Because like you see stuff in movies and shows.
Yeah.
But like in theory, a lot of that stuff, like Wakanda's, or like superheroes with bulletproof skin. Right?
That's why science fiction is so important, right? It's
because it allows us to push to that.
Yeah. Someone needs that vision to be like, hey, aim for that. And someone goes, well, how? So someone has to dream of that, and it's usually an artist. And then the engineers and scientists go,
let's make it a reality.
This is going to be a lot of work.
Yeah, like cell phones. I remember watching a movie or a show back in the day. I think it was Star Trek.
Okay.
and they were like talking to
the thing.
tablets and stuff like that. But like cell phones and pads and none of that existed then.
Correct.
And like now you look at that and you almost take advantage of it and you're like, wait, hold on. When this was developed, this was never a thing. It was just an idea.
When I was in high school and I wanted to go out with a girl, I had to call her house and talk to her dad.
Do you have a sister? Do you have any sisters?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Hey, can you call her and put her on the phone?
Like, hey, can I talk to so-and-so? Like, who is this? Now people have just cell phones or like dating apps or like texting.
Yeah,
Yeah, man, we've come a long way.
Remember you had to go to the door, knock on it, and be like, hey, I'm here?
Yeah.
Now you just text.
Different times.
I'm outside.
Different times.
Dude, that is wild. I don't even know where to go from here.
I mean, so that's kind of like so that's what I mean where with I want to do cool things with my time. And I understand that from a certain perspective that it's kind of selfish because at the end of the day, it's my time, it's my life. You choose how to spend it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I happen to think that those things are interesting and therefore that's what I do. And that's again, I'm not telling people what to do. I'm just saying that if you align your career with something that you find interesting already, that's probably good.
Great things
You know what I mean?
happen.
You don't have to. I'm not telling people what to do. But it's worked out for me,
No, and I think that's literally the secret to life is enjoying what you do and doing what you enjoy
Yes.
and getting paid for it,
Yes.
making a living off of it.
Yes.
Like that is, and some people love numbers. We have accountants.
Yep.
Some people love gray hairs, so they become scientists. So I can't even imagine what that fucking entails. But like we all have our thing, and this is the beauty of life.
Go for it.
We all have our thing. We all push it. We enjoy it. It gives us a return, and in that we build an entire society that balances off of each other. Right? Like you need accountant work. You have a guy or a girl who loves numbers. That's what she does for a living.
Yes.
Now you have an accountant.
I feel like not enough people, or there's a lot of people that don't really understand that.
There's not, because you run into these fields.
It's like there's nobody stopping you.
Yeah.
There's a few obstacles along the way and hurdles and things
Such is life.
But time is gonna pass anyway. So it's like suffer now, suffer later.
You ever meet those people who are like
anyway.
so gung ho at their job,
Yes.
right? And you're like, wow, that's an awesome person,
Yes.
And then you meet someone else in that same field, and you're like, dude, you're so miserable.
Yes. All the time.
All it entails
everywhere.
is one person is right where they want to be,
Yes.
and the other person is doing what they have to do to get by.
Yes.
Same field,
Yeah.
same line of work,
Just getting
same
by.
pay.
Yep.
One is ecstatic to be where they're at,
Yeah.
and the other's just getting by.
Or you happen to be good at something you don't enjoy, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you know what I mean? It's like
Why do I have to be amazing at jiu-jitsu?
it's like this is the easy route, right?
But like that is life. I think that is the secret to life is finding, and that's the hard part though. It sounds simple, but finding what you like,
Right.
that's going to give you a return.
That's what I'm saying. Take your time.
right? Because if
there's
you
no
enjoy
rush.
Netflix and sit on your couch,
Yeah.
it's gonna be hard to find something that pays you to do that. Maybe you can be a movie reviewer.
Right.
I'm
you
sure
can make
there's
movies. You can become you
Yeah.
can become a filmmaker.
So like finding what you love and doing it well enough that it returns, pays
Yes.
your bills,
Yes.
provides for your family.
Yes.
Simple, but not simple.
It's simple but not easy.
Simple, but not easy.
Like running a marathon. It's simple, one foot in front of the other, and then the other foot in front of the first one, and then do that
For a very long
repeat.
time.
Doesn't mean it's easy.
yeah, that's a
right?
good point.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you like? Listening, what do you enjoy? Can you find a way to do that for a living? If you can, you should be doing it.
Yep. It doesn't mean that you have to enjoy every aspect of your job. It doesn't mean that you have to enjoy every single one of the work or of the jobs that you've had. I've had many jobs that I don't enjoy, but as long as you understand that it's a means to an end, or it's a stepping stone. There's also a difference between there's a huge difference between a job and a career, right?
Yeah.
So, with that understanding, just do your thing, man, and go try and understand that failure is a prerequisite to success. Like you're gonna face plant a bunch of times, and you have to. But that's how you learn,
Yeah.
right? But the idea is that you're very methodical and you're self-critical, and then after every failure you go back and you kind of like really sift through the ashes and you go, okay, what went wrong and why, And I feel like this happens a lot. At least it happens to me in business. Every time you get a little bit further and you encounter new challenges, right? Because as you go, you learn more and more and more and more. With, at least that happens.
And newer challenges arise
with every company, right? And you become more efficient, and you kind of know what you're doing slowly, right?
Fail fast.
Yeah.
So you can learn.
Fail early and cheaply.
Yeah, and I tell people too, like it's either I tried it wasn't for me. Like, did you try it?
Right.
Did you give everything you could to that task at hand? Right? Because oftentimes, like, I tried it. It's like talking to a kid who doesn't like a meal. You cook it and they're like, oh, that's nasty. Did you try it? I hate it. Did you actually try it? Get a bite.
Right.
Put it in your mouth. Taste it. Swallow it. Is it good? No? Okay. But like...
You go from there.
Like, yeah, we can go from there. But with like, did you actually try?
Right.
Right? Did you actually put your best foot forward? Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't for you, it wasn't for you. But we get stuck in this rut of like, oh, I tried it. I'm miserable here. I'm miserable here. Like, you're not trying. You're not giving an effort to anything. So how can you expect something good when you're not putting good into it?
Right.
I've had that conversation with many people. With anything. They're like, why can't I seem to do that? What are you giving? Right? We're selfish. We want. Mm-hmm. Okay, be more selfish. Give everything so that you can get everything back.
Yeah.
If you're half-assing something, how can you, in your right mind, expect a full return?
Right. Yeah. One of the, not that you're asking, but, sometimes I do unsolicited advice.
I love it.
But, to people, one of the things that I tell them is whatever it is that you're doing, whatever thing you're pursuing seriously, you should probably have 3 mentors that do that. One mentor should be 2 years ahead of you. One should be 5 years ahead of you. And then one should be 20 years ahead of you. All in that vertical. So this is per thing. Like, let's say you really want to get good at podcasting. You should really have mentors that are actually helping you that way. If at the same time you want to, be a really, you have aspirations to go into office, for example, then you should have people that help you with that as well, right? And what happens is that in your mind, you're going to combine all three of them into this like super meta mentor, right? Because what happens is that the guy that is 20 years ahead of you, he's too far away. Like, he doesn't know how we do things now, but he can open doors for you. He can make a phone call, right? The guy that is 2 years ahead of you, like, he can tell you, like, for example, in medical school, he can tell you like how to study for the test, but he cannot help you how to plan your career because he's not there yet.
He's planning his career.
He's kind of like in the same boat with you. Like, he's just 2 years ahead. He has no idea what's coming. And then the one 5 years ahead of you is kind of like in there. So what you're saying is like, well, did you try it? Did you really try it? Well, but also, what else did you do, right? Did you do what people that have done that? And by the way, never take advice from people that haven't done it, right? Because a lot of people, including myself sometimes, they like to give advice about shit that they don't know anything about. So...
yeah,
there's a lot of like people that are
the unsolicited advice.
Experts, you know what I mean, in many things. Or there's a lot of people that they believe that because they have expertise in one field, that transfers automatically to. It happens a lot with black belts, authority about in other realms of life, and it's like, bro, I'm a
black belt in Jiu Jitsu. Let me tell you how to.
Let me tell you about
relationships.
Life. Yeah, exactly. So, but it happens with everything. Really, it's not just in Jiu Jitsu, right? So if you're doing something, like, listen to people that already did it. And if they haven't done it yet, you can ignore them.
Yeah, don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from.
Right. Like it's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And anything that you're serious about pursuing, like, reach out to people that have done. And you'll see that people love helping people. Like, that's one of the lessons that I learned in business that I didn't really know at the beginning. Remember how I told you that we didn't have money for consultants, so we wrote a bunch of grants? We didn't have to. Just pick up the phone, call people. People will go out of their way to help you. Or like, reach out to people on LinkedIn. Like, hey man, because people will see themselves in you all the time. They want to see, most people are good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They want to see other people succeed, and they want to make the world better in general.
I feel like, especially when you're at a certain level,
people will go out of their way to help you, man. You
like,
know what I mean? And so if they're done, like, reach out to them. They'll help you.
That's a good, closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Like if I come to you, I'm like, hey man, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Can you help? What are you going to be like? No, I'm not going to.
Some people would, then that blows my mind.
Well,
I'd be like,
you don't want to be around them anyway.
I'd be like, this is the list.
Yeah.
This is what I started with.
Yeah.
These are the things that I realized didn't work. This is where I'm at now. This is a cheaper version.
Most
of that.
people do that, and if they don't want to help you, then that's sort of like a self-filtering mechanism. It's like, okay, well, then I don't need that guy in my life anyway. So it's good to know from now. I see the cards.
Yeah.
So thank you for letting me know how you are, and move on, right? But most people will help you.
Yeah, especially because at the end of the day, like especially with podcasts, it's 1 hour of your week.
Yeah.
Like if I'm gonna what the kids call it gatekeep. If I'm gonna gatekeep that hour of your week, that says a lot about who I am as a person.
So is that what you do? You do one episode per week?
One episode per week.
Okay.
Well, it's not 1 hour because
whatever.
3 hours. Ours is gonna be good, man.
One episode per week.
One episode per
and
week.
then it goes out when? Like
Sunday at midnight it posts. So when people wake up and they're driving to work, they can, or not driving to work before they wake up.
Yeah. But wait. I imagine you have a little bit of a queue, like.
Oh yeah, I'm pushed out a while.
So this one is gonna go out in a few months.
No. So I'm at a point now. I was recording and it was like 1 month, 2 months posted.
Which you kind of want that, right? In case shit goes down.
Yes or no? Yes and no. It's good to prepare, but like
what if I don't show up? He's like, fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was running into that. So I started scheduling it, and that's part of that business side, right? I'm like, I need to be more efficient and more intentional with this because I'm running myself to the ground. So I need to be more efficient. By doing that, if someone cancels, I'm like, oh, cool. I have this episode.
There's a little backup.
Yeah. So what I've done is every couple weeks. So I'll record. So it airs in a couple weeks.
Okay.
That way it's relevant, right?
Yeah.
Like the stuff we're talking about right now.
Sometimes you're talking about current events, news, and it's like, bro, you can't wait 2 months.
You can't wait 2 months, right?
You can't,
Because you're talking about your artificial pancreas.
Yeah.
In 3 months later, you get this breakthrough, and you're talking about, man, we're on the brink of
struggling.
figuring this out.
Yeah.
And then as it airs, you're like announcing you made a breakthrough.
Right. I understand.
So
it makes sense.
So it's finding that balance of like, how far out do I schedule where it remains relevant, but I'm being smart with my time.
Yeah. How do you find people, guests?
Honestly, I'm very blessed and grateful right now.
That has to be challenging.
So when I first started, I'm like, how am I going to get 4 people a month?
Dude, who's going to want to come? I imagine. Yeah.
And now it's become people reach out to me. So like someone like you, I'm like,
so
cool.
it flipped.
Yeah, it flipped.
Oh, nice.
So I can be like, hey, would you want to be on? And you're like, oh, yeah, I'll be on.
Yeah.
And then I have 2 or 3 people like, hey, I saw this episode. I have this story. I'd love to be on. And I'm like, cool. I send them an intake form because I want to learn a little bit about you and what are your reasons, right? Like I had people, hey, I want to be on your podcast. I want to talk about my business. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, tell me a little bit about yourself. And they're like, no, I just want to talk about my business. We're probably not the best fit, right? Because like this is about people's stories that happen to talk about the things they're doing. Like, we can, but if all you want to do is self promote,
right?
I can sit you in here and charge you if that's what you want to do.
Right.
We can sit here and talk and pretend to do a podcast.
It's a different thing.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Like that's not my wheelhouse.
That's not what we're doing. Yeah.
So like people reach out, hey man, like I have this guy who he runs a group out of New Jersey that really targets like veterans who are officers and like dealing with mental health and stuff.
Yep.
He reached out, he's like, hey man, I'd love to come on. And I'm like, let's do it. Let's set it up.
Yep.
So people have been reaching out to me and I kind of filter it, because I want people here who want to be here for the right reasons.
Right.
Right. Like I don't want it to be me. I want it to be like, hey, I hope my story can
resonate
with people,
with
someone.
Help them.
Boom. I'll make time for you. So it's become more people reaching out to me and now I have like, dude, I literally have a list of 20 people, and you were on that list. And I was able to move you to my scheduled category, but it's a list of 20 people.
VIP.
Yeah, that I'm like, I got to get them in here.
Okay.
Lucas Siebert's on there because he wants to be, come back on.
Yeah.
And I'm just like waiting for him to be like, hey, I'm ready. So like once he's, boom, scheduled. But I have a list. I can technically
It sounds like a lot of work, man.
It is, but I love it. So it's not really.
Sometimes people don't see the amount of work that goes into, like, they see the tip of the iceberg. And then under the water is just like a bunch
My
of
family will tell you the amount
trial
of work
and error.
it is. My family will tell you the amount of work it is. I sit there and, there's times where I shut everything off and it's intentional time. And then there's time where they understand like, hey, he's got deadlines and stuff to meet, and I'll be, we'll still be watching a movie or show or something.
But it's awesome, dude. I love it. Like you made this. Right?
Yeah.
This is here because you chose to, right? You made this, you made that. You put this together.
Hey, well, dude.
Bro, it's awesome.
It's panel by panel.
Yeah, man.
And it's like, it's cool to sit back and go, wow, man. It's happening. It's going. Because in the beginning, I was traveling to people's places.
Okay.
I was setting up, in their gyms. I was going to Stout, setting up a table, setting up the mic, setting up the cameras, doing it out of my real estate office, going to people's businesses.
Good old days.
Yeah, and then this comes up. Now I come in, I have a place for people to hang out, chill. I have a studio. I click a button, everything starts going. And I'm like, man, I never would have dreamed this. I would have never thought I got this far. This is a passion project.
Yeah, but you kind of won that, right?
That's
you
the goal.
wanna you don't want to like, how do I put it? You don't want to succeed too quickly. You kind of need to earn it.
Yes.
You have to like take those steps, because next, if you do, then you're gonna find yourself at the top, and you're empty. You don't have anything.
And
but
you don't know how to deal with the problems that arise.
Right. You're making all these mistakes, and you're learning, and you're grinding, and you're like slowly, like you're earning your spot. So when you do get there, it's like earned, and it's real,
and appreciated,
and it's solid.
Yeah, appreciated.
And it's like literally, like, what questions do you have? This is how you do sound. This is how you do video. This is how you do promos. This is how you do marketing, as opposed to like a like overnight hit. And it's like,
well, you see a lot of that, right? You see this overproduced podcast, a lot of money behind it. And then
marketing goes out. Next thing you know, is
like,
you
where
have
did it go?
Millions of people. The only thing you're going to accomplish is that, millions of people will see how much you suck faster. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Hopefully people don't see how much I suck.
But no, I'm saying if you go slowly, then you hone your craft.
And you also build a community of people who want to be there,
Yeah.
right? Like the network I've
Do you
built
have friends
in
that
this.
do podcasts? Like, do you guys have like a network of people or no?
Yeah. There's a few people that do podcasts. I've been on theirs, they've been on mine, and we bounce off each other.
Compare notes.
Yeah, and it's cool because
Commiserate.
Commiserate.
Yeah.
I had Jillian, she's an author. Local fitness expert. She's probably gonna kill me for saying that, but
Hopefully not.
how I interview is different than how other people interview, right? So we have our conversation. I'm like, wow, dude, her story's so awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm very self-deprecating. I'm like, I don't feel like I captured it as she deserves.
Okay.
So I reach out to my buddy Sean, who has Barbells and Bourbon podcast.
Okay.
Or is it Bourbon and Barbells? It's Barbell and Bourbon. Sorry, Sean. I'm sorry. I forget my own name all the time. But Sean, I reached out to him like, hey, dude, you need to have her on. Like, your interviewing is way better than mine. He responds with, stop. Don't do that. So we're getting into this little exchange where he's like, dude, you're good. And I'm like, well, you're better. So like, you should have her on. And he reached out to her. So now she's going to be on his.
Yeah.
Like, that's the network. That's the people I surround myself with. Like, we're always trying to build each other. He sent me a guest he had. He's like, dude, I think he'd do very well on your podcast, which I'm yet to schedule.
Right.
So like, that's the thing. Like, our whole goal is to build something bigger and better than we are, or we ever could be.
Right.
Right. And then hopes to play catch up along the way, because that's how you grow.
Yeah. You ever think about the fact that this is going to be on the internet forever, or for a long time?
Haunts me every day.
Okay.
Right. Because like, we live in a world where people don't care to understand.
Yeah.
And the first thing they want to do is, oh, he said something I didn't agree with. He's horrible. He's and it's like, it takes away from everything you're trying to do, which I don't care what people think of me. I care about the results of that, right? Like, because I said something someone doesn't agree with, you're now going to be tied to me.
Yeah.
And now you're going to catch heat for something I said that I didn't understand, or because we're all learning and we're all growing.
Sure.
So like, that's my biggest fear is like, am I going to do harm to someone because I'm not the best speaker, or because I'm not the best versed in whatever field I'm talking in? And we live in a world.
You don't have to be, though.
Well, in this world, you do, right? Like, oh, he said 50 times. He's a horrible. I had a dude. I'll do the post-fight interviews because I love the fighters. They've all been on for 247.
Yeah.
They've all been on my podcast.
Yeah.
They're all cool people.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the post-fight interviews to kind of get a little outside glimpse of the episode they were on, to kind of get like their fighting. I get someone commenting, basically trashing me as an interviewer. I'm like, well, I'm not an interviewer. But
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Like, what'd you gain from that comment? Nothing.
You do it then.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah.
You
I'm
do it
like,
better.
yeah,
You do
please
it then.
take it over.
Yeah.
Take it over. Like if you could do it better than me, awesome.
Yeah.
I want to see that.
Yeah.
Like, but this is for me. This isn't for anyone, and it just happened to grow.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for it because that means more people will listen to your story, and more people, hopefully, someone listening is like, artificial pancreas.
Right. Let's get on
We're
that.
We're
Yeah.
investing, dude. If that happens,
But I also mean, like, it's going to be up for a long time. So your kids are going to be like, well, what was he like? Oh, well, let me show you what he was like.
oh,
Boom.
no.
There's a
I didn't think about that.
there's a library of like,
I do.
content.
My daughter did tell me her friends listen to my podcast and they love it, and I'm
okay.
like,
That's
I got to change some things, right? Because now I got little kid ears, so I try not to
Right.
say crazy things, but
Okay. Too
it's
crazy.
cool to me because I'm like, oh,
Should have opened with that, but okay.
this is not made for kids. This is made for adults.
Fair
who
enough,
are-
yeah.
who are, you know, so it's on the internet. I think parents should be,
Yes, they should.
you know, very intentional with what their kids are
Yes,
doing
they should.
online. So
Yes,
if
yes,
they
we
happen
should,
to
I
find
guess.
my podcast and you're upset with it, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I don't say anything crazy, and everything's meant to, you know, help and push people.
For sure.
But I know some people don't like swearing. I swear all the time. I know it's who I am. I'm very passionate.
Yeah, so do I. It's fine.
So like, if that's what gets you, your life is very well. If that's
Hey,
the issue,
it's
you have.
not for you.
Yeah, and I tell people, I'm like, swearing is the thing that did it.
Yeah.
You have a great life if that's what offends you, because I have people trying to kill me and spit on me and poop in my car, and like, so like swearing to me is like whatever.
Dude, being a cop has to be wild.
It's fun. I will say this. I get more good than bad, right? Like, yeah, we deal with a lot of crazy stuff, but when you get to interact with a kid who's going through something,
Yeah.
and then you see them as they grow and mature and change their life, the dividend back is infinite. Or you're dealing with someone, because like I was given breaks as a kid, right? I had interactions, and when you're dealing with a situation and you get to speak life into someone or talk to them, and I get it, not every cop is like this, and there's places where you can't really talk to people this way because you're dealing with 1,000 calls a day.
Right.
But I'm in a position where I get to do this, so I'll have those conversations in the car on the way to jail.
How do you end up being a cop? Because again, I had no idea. I don't know why. I thought you would.
That's
you
the
would
way
do
I like
just,
it.
Just real estate, and I'm like,
No, that's the way I like it. I don't.
Found out 45 minutes ago, or whenever it was.
Yeah, he was like, "Damn, I can't talk about the stuff I want to talk about now." No, long story short, I was always fascinated by cops.
Okay.
I thought it was like, it takes a special type of person to do a
It
job
does, for
that
sure.
You're never right? Like when you're getting called, it's someone's worst day. Someone wins, someone loses.
Yeah.
I'm being very general.
Yeah, you can't win.
Like you can never win. You
Right.
never leave a call like, I did the right
Solid.
thing. Even if
Yeah.
you did the right thing, someone disagrees with you. So it's like it takes a special type of someone,
It's
right?
just it seems like a difficult job.
It's
High stakes all around.
it is. It's if you care about people,
Yep.
if you care about people, it's an easy job, right? And I say that very generally because if whatever you're dealing with, if you can connect with someone, it's gonna make your job easier, right? Someone having a mental health crisis or someone having a bad day, if you can connect with them in any way, it makes it easier, right? Like the bad things we see online is usually the cop not making that connection, right? It's very robotic.
Okay.
And that's, again, you're never right in this job because, cops are like, well, they have a job to do. Okay, if I did my job, how it's written, we would be hated. Because you could be ticketed and cited for everything now.
Right.
There's a law for everything. And I like to look at it as like, our goal is to have a thriving community where people get along. And if they don't get along, they avoid each other. Right? So how can we serve that? You come to an establishment and you're mad, you start flipping stuff, and I cite you or take you to jail. And that's it. Boom. Throw you in. Come on. You're going to come out, you're going to hate me. But I'll sit there and be like, bro, what are we doing here? Like, do you think this was the best course of action? Right? They got your food wrong. Now you trash the registers in the store and cause $2,000 of damage, and you expect nothing to happen, what was your outcome? For you to for them to fix your meal after you do all this? You know that's not happening.
What's your game plan, champ?
Yeah, like we didn't think this through. Now I'm here. I'm a consequence to the actions you've done. I don't want to be here, but this is the job I've taken, and this is what I've been called to do right now. I could be sitting in my car drinking coffee, making the same money. I'm not here to fuck with you. I'm not here to make your life more difficult. But your actions have called for this to happen. So how are we going to solve this so that I'm out of your life sooner and you're not causing an issue here? You know you got to get cited. You know you got to pay this back. But you don't have to go to jail tonight if you just leave. And more oftentimes people will understand this situation sucks.
Most people are reasonable.
Most people are reasonable. You know, now, again, they get cited. They're probably upset. But they can understand, like, yeah, damn, I didn't make the best decision here. Yeah, and we're all human.
Fucked up.
Yeah, we're all human. We all fuck up.
Yeah.
Cops fuck up.
Yep.
You know, some cops fuck up more than others.
Yep.
Like, we're not perfect. And if we can address each other in a respectful manner and understand, like, I'm not better than you because I'm a cop. You're not better than me because you're a lawyer.
Right.
Right? Like, because that's egos, man. Egos is everything in this job. Mm-hmm. You have the cop with the ego, or you have the person you're dealing with an ego. And if we can put the egos aside and approach each other as humans, it's easy. But that's the hard part.
Yeah. You been a cop for how long?
9 years.
Okay. So far, so good. Still enjoy it.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Like, some days better than others, right?
Yeah.
Like, we deal with some messed up stuff.
You have to like your job.
You have to.
You have to like your job.
That's the thing as a
It's
cop.
just life is too short.
If you don't like it,
Yeah.
get out. And I tell cops that. If you don't enjoy this, stop. Because you don't get paid enough to do this job. You will never get paid enough to do this job if you don't like it.
You may die.
Well, yeah. Well, not only that, but like people are always angry at you.
Yeah.
People are always upset at you. Whatever, big deal. But like if you're doing this for money, do something else.
Right. There's better ways.
Like you can make a lot more money doing a lot better things.
Right.
Like you have to enjoy being a cop. You have to do it for the right reasons, or you're going to be miserable and you're going to get weeded out. You know, we see all the time the power trips and stuff. You know, sometimes it takes those guys a lot longer to show their true colors, but it always comes out. The truth always reveals itself. You can only hide so long. That's why I don't pretend to be the best person, but I'm fair and I'm honest, and I try to approach everyone how I would want to be approached in a situation. Sometimes I need to be cussed out. Yeah. Right? When I'm in my head and I need someone to be like, yo,
get your shit together.
Get your shit together. Right?
Yeah.
Other times I need to be like, hey, bro, let's talk. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, you have to be able to gauge that situation and connect with whatever you're dealing with.
You got to have those people in your life too.
Oh, I surround myself by people who tell me I'm a constant.
Yeah. Like, hey, man, what's going on?
Yeah. What are you doing?
What's bothering you?
Stop. Like, I got so lost in the sauce, I didn't realize that was happening.
Right.
So, and that you need to surround yourself by people who want what's best for you and understand what that may be, because sometimes you may not see it.
Yep.
Right? Like,
most of the time you don't see it.
Yeah, because you're so busy in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Midas drink real quick, because I am interested in how someone who engineer, physician, biotech, you're developing this pretty cool. Is it a product?
Yeah.
Would it be a product?
Yeah, it's a product.
And then you're very health conscious, and now you're
it's all the same.
working on this thing.
It's all the same thing.
Is it?
Really?
Okay.
It's all related. You know, like I said, I want to spend my time working on difficult problems that matter, and I like science. And you know, one of the things that happens in jiu-jitsu, you know, the return of investment in jiu-jitsu is huge, and one of those returns on investment happens to be the people that you meet. So I met one of our co-founders at Stout. Sad, I don't know if you know Sad. He's a blue belt. He's a
probably if I see his face.
He's a doctor in pharmacy, and we became friends really quickly. In fact, I when I met him, I felt like I already knew him, and that happens to me quite frequently because often I know people from other places, like just from being here for so long. But in this case, it turns out that I didn't. We just connected, and then even later, after training for a long time, I found out that he was in fact a pharmacist, and that he had an interest in mushrooms like I do.
I hear a lot of good things about mushrooms, but I never know.
Mushrooms are great, man. So what happens is that, generally speaking, most medications come from plants. There's only a couple of medications that come from mushrooms, things like penicillin, for example, or things like cyclosporin, like it's in the name. But that's pretty much it, right? There may be a couple more. Mushrooms are, for the most part, unexplored. Nobody has looked at those other than ancient medicine and stuff like that. So we both got talking, and we decided that it was a common interest, and it may be worth looking into that, in looking into mushrooms as a source of pharmaceutical compounds. So we said, okay. Every time we rolled, we talked more and more about the idea, and eventually we said, okay, well, let's just, because I had a background in business, and I told him basically, look, man, we can keep talking about things and ideas and abstract concepts all the time, but at the end of the day, what counts is the execution.
So let's put rubber to road.
Yeah,
right
man.
now.
If you wanna do this, let's shut up about it and do it. And what we decided to do was start a pharmaceutical company, air quotes. It's called Origin Mycology, with the premise that we are going to bootstrap the entire thing, meaning that we're not gonna take money from investors, which is obviously, we're not naive. It's impossible. Eventually we will have to, but the idea is to get there as far as we could without money.
On your own merit.
Yeah, so we came up with a little plan. Problem number one, we don't know shit about mushrooms. Got it. All right. So we said, well, let's spend some time learning about mushrooms, because one of the things that happens in health-related fields is that your reputation and your expertise in a specific field matters a lot. So, for example, when you're applying for grants and when you're applying for FDA clearance, they want to know, well, what have you done in this field? What's your expertise? Who are the key influencers in this field?
Yeah, who gave you the stamps of knowledge?
Yes. Like if for whatever reason you discover the cure for cancer tomorrow and you show up to the FDA, they're gonna be like, yeah, no, like we're not gonna let you put this on a human. Like, who are you? Right? You like, show me your publication records. Show me all of that. So we felt that that we needed to develop an expertise in mushrooms. We spent about a year and a half learning how to grow different types of mushrooms. One of the first things that we did is that we identify additional co-founders for this company, and my role was supposed to be almost like an advisor, because I was already so busy. So I was going to be a business strategy advisor for this company, because I was like, guys, for the most part, these were like younger guys in their 20s. So I'm like, dude, I don't have time. I have my hands full between the hospital and my company, and Jiu Jitsu, quite honestly.
Good way.
Yeah. You guys, I'll tell you what to do, and we'll meet every 2 weeks, but you guys do the work, right? Big mistake. So we spent a couple of months building up like a grow operation, like with tents and humidifiers and oxygen exchanges and all these things, and learning about mushrooms.
So it has to be dark, right?
Sometimes it depends on what you're growing.
Oh,
Yeah, so it gets.
I watched The Last of Us.
Kind of
so it had to
technical,
be
right?
a little.
Yeah, it has to be dark and humid. So we had a mycologist who waited until we finished building all that stuff over a few months to be like, hey guys, never mind, I'm out. So we find ourselves months into this operation without a mycologist. And from the group of founders, I was being a scientist. I was the closest thing to a mycologist, because you still have to do do sterile technique and pipetting and agar plates and spores and mixed strains and stuff like that. So it's very, very similar to like cell culture, in terms of like sterility and the like the supplies and the equipment that you use is all the same.
And the process.
The process.
Interesting.
And the documentation and all that. So I was like, fuck, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to get this thing started until we find a mycologist to, replace the person that left. So we started developing processes. Now, but the difference is that now we didn't have anyone who knew what they were doing. So we basically had to teach ourselves how to grow mushrooms from scratch, from books and from YouTube. So that took such a long time, because what happens is that, I guess the biggest challenge is that if you are optimizing conditions for mushrooms to grow, you are simultaneously optimizing conditions for everything else to grow. All of the mold in the world, which is everywhere, all of the bacteria in the world, which are everywhere. So you need a series of controls and protocols and cleanliness, and you got to run it like a lab, basically. And never mind the fact that you don't know what you're doing. So we spent about a year developing these standardized operating SOPs, operating procedures, and this is how you do this is how you grow this strain, this is how you prepare the substrate, this is how you prepare the grain, but all of that through trial and error, right? The recipe for the media, the temperature for the room, everything basically jerry-rigged, right? Like for the grow operation, the tent, the grow room, the substrate room, you have to build these barrels to sterilize your substrate in bulk, because it's a grow operation. You can't just do one at a time on the stovetop. You know what I mean? So once we learned how to grow different species of gourmet mushrooms, we found out that there was actually an interest for those mushrooms in the community. So we started selling fresh mushrooms to restaurants and hotels here in the Pittsburgh area. And that, us learning how to grow mushrooms, became the Pittsburgh Mushroom Company. So the Pittsburgh Mushroom Company, that is now in a farm 2 hours north, grows and sells fresh mushrooms.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. I'm not involved with that anymore.
But that's awesome.
But I developed, I used to have dirt on my hands 24/7 for 6 months. We developed the processes. We learned how to design a grow room. Where to put the steam and the fog and the fans and all the filters and all that stuff. Now it's at a farm. It's not, it's agriculture. It doesn't make a lot of money, but it's a thing. So that's phase one. We are now in phase two. Phase two consists on the same thing. It's kind of the same approach. We're teaching ourselves how to extract functional compounds or valuable compounds from mushrooms. So now, instead of selling the mushroom fresh, which we still do, we keep it, we dry it, and we learn how to extract functional. Functional means that has a physiologic effect on human health compounds from mushrooms. And, not going to get into it, but there's many benefits. Mushrooms are used as supplements.
Yeah,
right?
You see more and more supplements containing
Right.
mushroom coffee, mushroom protein, all kinds of stuff.
So mushrooms are incredibly beneficial. The thing that I'll say about that is that part of the challenge is getting enough of a dose. So for example, lion's mane. Lion's mane is great. If you want to get the benefits from lion's mane, you have to eat a shit ton of lion's mane. So it's really not viable, even though it's delicious. So instead, what you should be doing is you extract the beneficial compounds from the lion's mane, you concentrate it into a pill, and then you take that. So that's more or less what we're learning. And we're teaching ourselves how to do that. We're teaching how to study the different properties of the different compounds, identifying what may be beneficial versus not. And just like we did during phase one, we said, well, if we're doing this anyway, why don't we just put these compounds in products and see if people are interested in them? We definitely are. We're taking them anyway. There's a relatively high probability that other people who are also interested in their health and like the same things that we like may want these things. So let's try that. So we started brainstorming, and Mitos actually started as a tea. And the reason it started as a tea is because we had to brew it to extract some of the compounds from the cordyceps. It was not a very sophisticated process, but you brew it like you would brew coffee, and some of that shit comes out, and it's like you go, oh look, there's cordyceps here, and it's a tea. What we didn't know is that heat actually inactivates some of the beneficial activity of those compounds, and it's actually some of that starts happening at around 65 degrees. So we right away knew that, well, we can't rely on heat for distraction. And even if we do, if we offer this as a tea or as a coffee, whenever you pour the hot water, you're kind of like inactivating the benefit.
So mushroom coffee.
It's like, well, it's case by case basis. It really depends on what compound you're talking about, but you're definitely inactivating. In our specific case, we were interested in cordyceps for that one example, cordyceps and lion's mane. So we said, definitely it's not a good approach. So step 2, the second iteration, and are you familiar with Top Club? So Top Club is a group of people here in Pittsburgh, actually started, Tyler Butler, he goes to Stout. He started that as a group of people. Then they do basically ice baths. And
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it started as a couple of literally friends ice bathing together, and then it gain momentum, and it gathered.
Sounds very jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, dude, it turned into a business basically, and they're doing great. So
that's what they do. Like you see them all like in the pods.
Yep.
With like the wooden. Was it wood? I remember seeing someone posting on
it's a barrel. Yeah,
a barrel.
Yeah. They do that. And they have
it.
sauna there and everything, and a super fun environment. Yeah. So we did a lot of that part of like initial product development with them, getting feedback from their community, and we also relied on Stout a lot. So after it went from being a tea to being a whole ass drink like Gatorade, like big. The problem is that it doesn't taste very good. It comes from mushrooms, so it tastes like cold mushroom soup. Now, the biggest challenge with that is that it's an energy drink now, right? So the biggest challenge with that is that, I can fix the taste, but I have to add all sorts of things to it, ingredients that are not good for you. And that goes against what we want to do, right? I can somehow, fix the taste a little bit, which we did with natural ingredients like, lemon extract and that kind of stuff. Still not very good, but we're not going to compromise. We're not going to add things that are not healthy to it. So we said, okay, well, the next thing to do is let's just, it doesn't taste very good. Let's just turn it into a shot. Let's see if we can concentrate those ingredients, turn it into a shot. Doesn't taste good, but down the hatch, you get your energy. So it gives you energy for your, it works as a pre-workout. It has all the benefits that cordyceps and lion's mane have. And that's very well established. And it is, there's decades of publications on both of those mushrooms. It's an energy drink for people that care about their health, and they don't like the side effects that we typically, like anyone who takes an energy drink, they kind of know that they're bad for you. They work and they taste really good. So that's why people take them, right?
Doped up on caffeine and sugar.
Yeah, man, but people know they're not good. So this is an alternative, right? So Midos is an energy drink for people who care about their health. And, it's a little rough. It's a shot, but you take it and off you go.
I didn't think it was too bad at all.
Yeah, a lot of people say that. And off you go, right?
It tasted healthy. Yeah. That's the best way to put it. It tasted healthy.
Yeah. It's also a supplement. Like the more you take it, the better your health will be. Again, cordyceps and lion's mane, it's going to be good. Not for everyone, a bit of an acquired taste. So that's what Midos is. Midos is just our first attempt to create a product based on mushrooms, while we teach ourselves how to extract all these compounds. And we're also going to explore all their products as well, right? So eventually we want to make protein bars. We want to look into other things. Tonics and things like that. And hopefully, maybe or maybe not, one of these supplement lines takes off or not. But once we develop that expertise and when we kind of know a little bit better what we're doing, then we move on to phase 3, which is full-blown pharmaceutical compounds. Now, the difference between the two is that supplements are not regulated in the way that pharmaceutical compounds are. Right, like if you want to put out a pharmaceutical compound in the market, on average, it's going to be $1 billion, right? And you're going to need clinical trials, and you're going to need studies in a lab, and that's why,
That's wild.
It is wild.
Well, no wonder medicine's so expensive.
Yeah, man. And obviously, it's very nuanced. The reason why it costs $1 billion is because most candidates, most medications actually fail stage 3 clinical trials. Like it's crazy. Like it's more than 96% of them. They make it all the way to stage 3 or phase 3 clinical trials, and then they fail. So imagine all the money that it takes to like bring all these compounds through testing in a lab and research, like benchtop research, and then all the battery of preclinical studies. And we're talking about like hundreds of compounds, like different variants and stuff. You know, maybe you put the methyl group in a different part because you want it to cross the blood-brain barrier or not, or maybe you want extended effect, like things like that. But anyway, most of those fail, and then you get one that ends up working, right? So that's why developing medication costs so much.
So Midos is a goal to be pharmaceutical.
Not Midos per se.
Not Midos per se, but the process that you've undergone was...
Yeah, we're just learning. We're learning about... So like right now, for example, if you talk to me, I mean, you ask me about my experience with mushrooms, I can speak with confidence, right? With certainty that I know how to grow mushrooms. I developed the processes myself. I spent 8 months like face planting, literally failing and learning how to grow, you know, all these... different species require different conditions and different cycles, the different humidity, different oxygen levels. So now I know all that stuff, and now I'm learning how to extract these compounds. So you know, like we develop not only that skill set, but also that confidence and sort of like the right to speak with authority in that field. So it's different. Like if someone wants to start a pharmaceutical company based on mushrooms with no experience of mushrooms, is very different from us who are going to start with this background, right? Because you got to remember, on top of that, like the other half, like I'm a physician.
Yeah,
I'm
so
a
you
PhD.
understand the biology.
He's a PharmD. Like it's not like we're missing the other half. Like, you know, the other half is actually our expertise. That's the shit that we actually know how to do. You know, this we kind of like scrambled, like lost
And
for a little
integrating
bit.
that into your current... It's interesting. I have a quick question.
Yeah, man. It's not going to be quick.
Is the last... No, it should be. Is The Last of Us ever possible?
No, I don't think so. I mean, never say never.
Because they say because there's certain invasive species of mushrooms.
You understand the premise, right?
Yeah, like it's self-preservation, right, for the mushroom. When
That's
it
part
takes
of it.
over like
Insect.
an insect or
Yeah.
a spider.
That's real. Yeah, that happens in real
I've
life.
seen that.
Yeah.
And then you know it makes the spider crawl up to the highest
Yeah.
part. It blows the spores
Spores.
in order to grow again.
Yeah.
Right. Would that ever be possible in a human body? And this is a stupid question, but I analyze this
Yeah.
show. I'm like, why are they moving so fast if they're infected? Like
Right.
if you're a fungus,
I mean,
like,
it's fiction.
Yeah, I understand,
yeah.
but like make it realistic.
Yeah.
You know? Like this fungus is not going to be moving your system that fast, right?
Yeah.
So like there's some things I'm like, a mushroom wouldn't do that, which is funny because
Yeah.
a mushroom wouldn't
Right.
affect the body. But
Yeah.
like, would that ever be possible?
I mean, that kind of happens to a certain extent when we die, right? Our body gets colonized with bacteria
Yeah.
and mushrooms, and then, or, you know, fungi of different species, and they reproduce, and they blow their spores, and that kind of happens. They can't control that, you know, our movement. That's way too complex. There's too many steps, too many things. Biology is way too organized. You know, like our biology, it's not the same as the exoskeleton of an insect that you may be able to like manipulate with a few pulleys and, you know, tendons attached to like things.
Okay.
But again, hey, never say never. I love fiction. You know what I mean? That's like we were talking earlier. That's where like it like to me that's like the origin. It's science fiction, right? It's science. That's what we kind of like tend to like look up to and try to emulate.
Yeah, that's that's interesting. But I never even thought of that. Yeah, like the system it would use to control a spider's not the same it would
Right.
for a human.
Yeah, I think it's way too
People
complex.
listening are definitely like, "You dummy."
Nah, I think it's
Everyone-
dude. I think it's
there
cool.
were other people who had that question too.
No, man, I
I'm
think it's
talking to
cool.
a mushroom guy.
Yeah,
We talked about a lot.
yeah, we did.
The way I like to wind down is you hit a lot of good things on life in general, like life specifically.
Okay.
Approach.
Yeah.
If someone listening to this episode, if you can tell them, you can give them one thing to take from this episode, You know,
Yeah.
they're listening.
Yeah.
They're like, man, this dude's a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
Now the episode's
I don't know
over.
about
They're
that,
going
man.
back to they're going back to their daily lives. What's one message you want to resonate with the listeners after this episode?
I would say just be brave and just go do it. And understand that you're going to fail and understand that that is part of the process, right? You have to, like no one shows up to jiu-jitsu expecting to be a world champion without being submitted in open mat. You have to eat shit so many times, right? So like get to it, because you have to like get through those reps anyway. So the faster you do that, the better. And nobody's watching, bro. No, nobody cares. It's your life. Go do it.
I literally tell people all the time, like,
Yeah.
who cares?
Nobody cares. Nobody's watching.
Like, you go in the middle, you know what I mean? You go to New York City.
Time's
you have
gonna
people
pass
yelling in the middle of the street. No one cares.
Nobody cares.
You might get a, what is that? But like, at the end of the day, no one cares.
Remember, time is gonna pass anyway. You have to choose what you do with the 24 hours that you're, withdrawing today from your bank.
That's a good message.
Do not waste it.
Fail fast, fail early.
Yeah, man.
Because we can afford to the younger we are. The older we get, the less we can afford to fail.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
so good. And where could people follow you online if they want to know more about what you're doing and your Mitos, especially this research and product you've been working on? I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, so basically, I have an Instagram account, Startup BTS. So behind the scenes, startup.bts.
Oh, I was wondering what that stuff.
Yeah, I kind of talk about like the behind the scenes of my startup. Like what am I thinking about? I'll show you how much money we're making with Mitos, and what's the strategy that we're going to implement to like for marketing, or like the kind of thing that we're like, and I use that to run things by people, like a sounding board. And
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, because whenever I post an idea and I get a bunch of like messages, like for example, we did a little like Dr. Rick's Invitational, right? So you submit me in jiu-jitsu, you get a free case. And now we're doing like free rash guards for people, like Mitos rash guards with your name if you have like a fight event, not a tournament, but like an actual special, like
Either a super fight or
like a super, like something like
okay.
that. So we'll just give you the rash guard. We'll give you a case. So I post things like that, and what I use is the signal from like the messages that I get from people to sort of like sift through the like what's a good idea versus a bad idea. So if I get a lot of signal and I get a lot of messages, I'm like, okay, we have to like give people rash guards. They like everyone wants this shit. Let's just pull the trigger on those. They want them. So startup.bts, that's where I just talk about. That's my personal account. I talk like this, right? So
that's cool.
unfiltered is not like you can ask me whatever you want. I'll give you the information. I don't care. I'll show you numbers. Unfiltered. Again, that's
Best way to be.
my own opinions.
Same.
Right?
Best way to be.
Then we have the Drink Mitos for the brand. That was a little bit cleaner, more polished. It's a brand. You can follow that as well. I don't run that account, but it's there. And then I have a Substack, a newsletter. It's called Level Up. I also have an Insta for Level Up, where I focus on health and productivity optimization, mostly for older combat athletes. So like people like me, and people that are like very productive, like highly like effective or like busy professionals, like people that don't really have time to like
Waste.
well, like people don't have time to listen to 12 hours of health related podcasts every week, like Andy Huberman and Sinclair and Rhonda Patrick and Peter Attia, like, and a lot of that stuff is like super dense, right? So I do. I'm also it helps that I'm a physician and a scientist. So like you and I may, hear the same sentence, but because I know pharmacology, physiology, pathology, like I understand that quicker, and I can make that decision whether or not that's relevant or not. So one of the things that I do with that, Substack, I have a post like the 10 pillars of health, or I have one for like starting jiu-jitsu after 30, like 10 things you need to know. Like shit like that.
I'm gonna have to read that one. 'Cause
Yeah,
I feel
man.
like I'm starting all over again.
I speak a lot, I talk about it like supplements and the other thing, and what I do specifically is like I always show the data and I show the studies. So it's none of it, 0% of that of what I post is my opinion. Like it's all backed with data, with the numbers, with the studies. talk about a lot of like exercise science, supplements, and sleep.
I'll have to
shit
add
like
that. I'll
Yeah,
have to
man.
add that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate you for coming on.
No,
I feel like
likewise,
we're
man.
gonna have to do a second episode.
Anytime,
I'm calling
man.
it right now. We're gonna have to do a second one because
There's a bunch of stuff to talk
I
about.
just disregarded this completely.
I understand.
I understand what you said. He told me after I said
one.
He said we're not gonna have time for all that. I'm like, dude, I do this for a living now. Okay, we're gonna have. Shit, was I wrong?
Yeah.
Because you can go into like I love the specifics and I learned so much.
But
about,
that's just like scratching the surface, right?
yeah, and we didn't even. I feel like we're gonna have to go back. We're gonna have to run it again.
Yep. Anytime, bro.
Because
I'm
there's so
happy to
much
be here. This was
to
awesome,
learn.
dude. This was great. Had a lot of fun.
I had fun and
I need to do this more, I think.
you should.
It's kinda
honestly
cool.
with what
Yeah.
you're doing and
Yeah.
the stuff inside this brain that you're carrying.
Well, it helps,
the
like-
knowledge. It would help to have a form. Like I'm gonna follow your level up. I didn't even know you had level up.
It's mostly memes, but we'll
Still,
get there. Yeah.
but like me being, I like business.
Yeah.
I like tech. I like biology. I like things I don't know. I like learning about it because you can always apply something to what you're
dude,
doing.
learning things is the best.
It's the best.
It's awesome.
It's the best. I'm gonna leave here.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna talk about tissue regeneration.
I didn't feel this way when I was in school. Like learning wasn't my thing.
Because I feel it's different, right? Like
Yeah.
that's forced learning, and this is
Yeah.
learning with a purpose. This is learning with
Learning is awesome.
intentionally.
Yeah.
And some kids who do very well in school, that's what they're doing, right? I think that's where I battled in school. Although we're talking about GPAs, 3.9. Don't want to brag. Not in
Right,
college.
right.
In college, it went to 2.
Hey, it happens.
Then it came
Ups
back
and
up.
downs. Yeah.
But I think you should have an open form, not to add more things to your plate.
Right,
but,
right.
I think doing the social media stuff helps. That's something I need to do more.
Yeah.
Little short clips of me,
Yeah.
like talking like this and intentional conversation. But the long form really helps because you get to get into something and dive deep into it. And those who want to will sit in and listen.
Yeah.
and can
Right.
will do it.
It helps me like organize my thoughts as well. And kind of like because sometimes like relying a message in a clear, concise way is not always easy. So having that long form lets you like, all right, you can talk in circles a little bit, but you land the plane. And hopefully, I imagine with time you get better at that.
Still working on it.
Yeah, like same, brother.
But I appreciate you for coming on. This is the one with Dr. Rick. I'm eliminating my dose. I'm just going to put the one with Dr. Rick.
Okay,
because there's so much
you can do whatever
you
you
can
want,
do.
man. Yeah, we'll do it again. We'll figure it out.
And I'll link everything in there.
Yeah.
But man, the stuff we talked about, I appreciate you for jumping on.
Good times, man. Thanks for the invite.
Anytime.
This was great.
Anytime. We're out.
All right, bro.
Later.